Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, American Comics, starting with cloning 100,000 lickers. Chapter 61. At the moment, hundreds of helicopters also slowly stopped at the edge of the battlefield. Helicopters are much bulkier than Chidori's flight machine. Therefore, Lin Yu did not directly order those helicopters to join the battle. They are only responsible for transportation. After some of the helicopter doors opened, hundreds of armed members of the Umbrella Company stepped out of the plane. Then, under the leadership of Wesker, several combat groups were formed to support each other and headed towards the center of New York. They all have their own tasks, but they are not dealing with those Chidori. But in addition to these armed members, half of the helicopters did not open the hatch after landing. They stopped quietly on the edge of the battlefield without any movement. No one knew what was inside those helicopters. In the center of the battlefield, the Avengers are still struggling against the endless Chidori soldiers. Almost all of them were quite tired. Even most of them have been injured. But they can only persist. If the battlefield is not controlled in the center of New York, the whole world will be destroyed by these Chidori soldiers. That would be a disaster for the entire world. At this moment, everyone in the Avengers was exhausted and was about to be exhausted. They suddenly felt that the ground began to shake slightly. It seems like thousands of troops are galloping. Not only the Avengers, but also the Chidori soldiers felt the trembling of the earth and the rumbling sound coming from the distance. On a Chidori flight, Loki also frowned. So far in the battle, his Chidori army has gained an absolute advantage. Even the Hulk and his brother Thor are unable to defeat the huge Chidori army. In such a war situation, what else could happen? But, at this time, Loki suddenly remembered the conversation he had just had with Tony Stark. He seemed to have said a word. Biochemical army. Yes, that's the word. Loki was a bit dismissive at the time. However, now he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The rumbling sound indeed sounded like some kind of army in action. Biochemical army. What it is, Loki, as the Prince of Asgard, has never heard of this word. But, soon, he saw what a biochemical army was. Not far from the battlefield, a huge team was running crazily towards the center of the battlefield. They are extremely fast. The number is even more terrifying. Through his powerful eyesight, Loki could clearly see the appearance of those monsters. There are two types of monsters. Some parts of the body are covered with bone armor, while other parts have no skin at all. They look bloody, and they stick their long tongue out when they run, which is extremely disgusting. But, those images are very familiar to Loki. That time when he controlled the destroyer mecha and came to Earth, he was attacked by those disgusting monsters. Moreover, their terrifying claws can actually leave marks on their own destroyer armor. And now, these monsters are dozens of times more than last time. In addition to these monsters, there is another kind of dark green monster with a larger number. They also look scarier. Those long sickle-like claws, Loki had no doubt of their sharpness. The two monsters combined together form a biochemical army of 500,000, with almost no end in sight. Soon, the Wa army came into contact with the Chidori at the outermost edge. Although each of the Chidori soldiers is equipped with powerful thermal weapons, their reaction speed and strength are far behind the biochemical army. In an instant, those Chidori soldiers were submerged in the ocean of biochemical army. The army galloped past without slowing down at all. Behind them, the bodies of the Chidori soldiers had been turned into pieces. Some of the flesh and blood had neat wounds, which were caused by hunters. Some turned into a disgusting pile of minced meat, which was bitten by the lickers. The two biochemical arms have completely different combat methods. But the effect achieved is no different. When the biochemical army arrived near the center of the battlefield, all the lickers and hunters dispersed in an instant. Lin Yu gave them the order to fight freely. The seemingly endless number of Chidori soldiers turned out to be a bit inadequate compared to this 500,000 biochemical army. Almost every Chidori soldier faces dozens of biochemical monsters. Originally, he might not have a chance to win one-on-one, but now he is no match for a group fight. In an instant, the Tarui people suffered heavy losses. Especially the Chidori soldiers on the ground. They faced the crazy lickers and the elusive hunters, and they were quickly killed and injured. The Chidori flying aircraft in the sky are slightly better, but they are occasionally attacked by hunters who suddenly jump up. The balance of victory was reversed in an instant. The citizens of New York, who were already feeling a little desperate, suddenly felt hope rise in their hearts when they saw this scene. They had no idea that those biochemical monsters that looked more terrifying than Chidori would actually become their saviors. Those monsters are attacking the Chidori soldiers crazily, but they will not harm ordinary humans on Earth at all. People's mentality began to slowly change. The captain of the United States can't save himself, but the umbrella company can. Although the monsters they created looked ugly, they actually look a little cute now. In front of those monsters, I actually felt a long-lost sense of security. At the moment, they even wanted the monsters to be scarier. Because their terror has already been felt by those aliens. At the moment, the Avengers gathered together again. In the middle of this fierce battlefield, they seem to be doing nothing. Around them, countless biochemical monsters are attacking those Chidori, and there is no chance for them to take action. And, not only that, when everyone in the Avengers saw those Thunderlickers and Super Hunters, they couldn't help but feel a little fear in their hearts. These biochemical monsters have more or less left a shadow in their hearts. Especially the Hulk, he once again had the idea of escape. However, all around him were crazy biochemical monsters. Even if he wanted to run, he couldn't run away. He could only stand there and look at the carnage around him in horror. However, despite the addition of the biochemical army, the Chidori army has already fallen into a disadvantage. But as long as the portal is not closed, Chidori can pass through the portal and come to the Earth without restriction. Except for Loki, no one knows how many Chidori are watching on the other side of the portal. At this moment, Natasha Romanoff suddenly said, "How about I take this opportunity to see if I can close the portal?" Natasha Romanoff's words instantly won the approval of her teammates. Tony immediately said, "I'll go with you." Subsequently, Tony grabbed Natasha Romanoff's clothes, and the two of them instantly took off and threw them towards the roof of Stark Industrial Building. But, immediately afterwards, after arriving at the rooftop of Stark Industrial Building, the two of them were dumbfounded. On the roof of Stark Industrial Building, at the moment there are already countless super hunters. There were 3 circles inside and 3 outside, directly surrounding the entire machine that controlled the Tesseract. In the center of the encirclement, Wesker quietly waited with the fully armed Umbrella Company combat team. Seeing the arrival of Tony and Natasha Romanoff, Wesker gently waved the psychic scepter in his hand and said expressionlessly, "This place has been occupied by the Umbrella Company. The rest of the people are waiting to get away quickly." As a time traveler, how could Lin Yu not know that the Mind Scepter can close the portal? But, Lin Yu doesn't want to close the portal so quickly. Chidori soldiers, the more that come the better. Those are all the raw materials for the clone biochemical army. And, the battle took place in New York, not Raccoon City. Lin Yu had almost no losses at all. And it doesn't matter if all of the 500,000 biochemical army are dead. As long as their bodies are still there, Lin Yu can clone them all again within 2 days. This is one of the Umbrella Company's strongest cards. So, the deaths of Thunderlicker and Super Hunter didn't bother Lin Yu at all. Moreover, the damage those Chidori soldiers can do to these 2 biochemical monsters is really limited. The Super Hunts are so fast that Chidori's thermal weapons can hardly hurt them. The armor of the Thunderlick Eaters is too hard, and even if they get hit a few times occasionally, they won't die, but will make them even crazier. In addition, the portal cannot transport all the Chidori soldiers at once, they can only come in batches, and there is no way to organize large-scale Legion operations. As a result, the entire New York City has almost become Chidori's meat grinder. It was a complete one-sided massacre. Lin Yu is not in a hurry at all. Therefore, he immediately asked Wesker to lead people to occupy the roof of the Stark Industrial Building. By the way, he obtained the psychic scepter on the roof of the building, and also controlled Dr. Eric, who built the teleportation device. In this way, even if his biochemical army cannot hold it anymore, Wesker can quickly close the portal. Make sure nothing goes wrong. Tony, but after Natasha Romanoff saw the situation on the roof of the Stark Industrial Building, she could only return to the ground again and reunite with her teammates. They don't want to mess with the Umbrella Company right now. Even without the protection of those biochemical monsters, they would not dare to take action against anyone from the Umbrella Company. After all, the Umbrella Company is now the most powerful party on the battlefield. At this moment, on the battlefield, Loki finally discovered the seriousness of the problem. At the moment, after several minutes of massacre, there were almost no Chitauri soldiers alive on the ground. Only in the sky were some Chitauri soldiers driving flight machines and a few Leviathan beasts. These flight units still have a slight advantage when facing the biochemical army that cannot fly. Although their attacks cannot cause much damage to those flexible monsters, at least those monsters can hardly hurt flight units. Seeing this, Loki's eyes suddenly lit up. He hurriedly ordered to Chitauri on the other side of the portal, send out the entire flight unit. Don't let the soldiers in the Leviathan come out. Strike the ground from the air first. Loki gave an order, and the Chitauri soldiers on the other side of the portal rushed in crazily again. But this time, they finally became much smarter under Loki's command. No more soldiers were put down on the Leviathan beast. They hide inside the Leviathan beast, while the Leviathan beast continues to wreak havoc. In addition, the Chitauri soldiers driving the flight machine gathered together and fired at the ground together. Covered by a wide range of firepower, it immediately caused casualties to the Umbrella Company's biochemical army. Although the casualties are limited, at least the Chitauri army is no longer passive. Loki's face showed a winner's smile again. The portal is still slowly expanding. And because under Loki's order, the casualties of Chitauri soldiers quickly decreased, the speed of Chitauri soldiers pouring into the earth from the portal also increased. The balance of victory seems to have tipped towards Loki and Chitauri. Everyone in the Avengers has also seen that the battle situation is not ideal. Although they were quite exhausted, they could only join the battle again. This is not a simple battle between the Umbrella Company and aliens, but a battle between the entire Earth and aliens, and they cannot stay out of the battle. But their joining had minimal impact on the battle situation. After all, their numbers are too few. Now, a large number of Chitauri soldiers will come to Earth through the portal every second. The disparity in numbers made their efforts less meaningful. At the moment, Umbrella Corporation's Raccoon City Hive underground base. Lin Yu looked at the picture on the big screen quietly, still looking calm. He didn't seem to care at all about the current battle situation. Even seeing more and more Chitauri soldiers coming to Earth makes me feel good. Finally, it seems that the number of Chitauri seen coming through the portal is enough. Lin Yu suddenly smiled slightly, and then ordered to the Red Queen, let the Steel Hunters go out and kill all those little flying insects. Lin Yu's order was instantly transmitted to the helicopter brigade next to the New York battlefield through the Red Queen. The helicopter, which had not opened its door before, opened its door at the same time. Immediately afterwards, in those hatches, countless black figures rose into the sky instantly. On their chests, there is an obvious logo of the Umbrella Company. Other than that, everything is black. Black metal armor. Those black figures are all super hunters, but they are all wearing black steel battle suits. Their sharpest claws are still exposed, clearly showing their identity. But, after putting on this steel battle suit, they actually have flight ability. There were 2 jets on each of their armored legs and backs, which instantly burst out with fierce flames. The powerful thrust caused their figures to quickly rise into the sky. Extremely fast. A total of 300 super hunters wearing steel battle suits turned into 300 streams of light and headed towards the battlefield. This is the research result of the Umbrella Company's Weapons Research and Development Laboratory. In other words, it is the result of improvements based on Tony Stark's steel battle suit. Regardless of whether there is any reference, these steel hunters instantly change the situation of the battle as soon as they appeared on the scene. Compared to Chitauri's flight machines, these flight-capable steel hunters are faster and more flexible. And they also have the terrifying attack methods of super hunters. They don't need to use any thermal weapons at all. They only need to quickly approach the Chitauri soldiers driving the flight machines to easily resolve the battle. They are like ghosts with flight ability, drawing black lines in the sky. It's like weaving into a big black web. In an instant, countless Chitauri flights fell from the sky. Explosions came and went. In an instant, the advantage that Chitauri had established was completely torn to pieces. At this moment, Tony Stark, who was fighting with all his strength, was stunned when he saw the silhouettes of those iron hunters. He frowned slightly. It seemed that huge amounts of doubts arose in my heart. Although these steel battle suits are all black, why do they feel so similar to my own steel battle suit? Also, when did Umbrella Corporation have such powerful steel battle suit technology? Every steel hunter is extremely powerful. Their speed and agility are not inferior to Tony Stark. Because the financial resources of Umbrella Corporation are completely unmatched by Stark Industries. Tony's steel battle suit is made of aerospace metal, and Lin Yu's steel battle suit of 300 steel hunters is also made of aerospace metal. 300 steel hunters, 300 times the investment, or simply a drop in the bucket for Lin Yu. If Lin Yu is given enough time, Lin Yu can even equip 300,000 super hunters with steel battle suits. 300 black figures were flying all over the sky. Every time they passed by those Chidori flight machines, they could easily cut off their flight machines, or the heads of the Chidori soldiers on the flight machines. In less than a minute, these 300 steel hunters easily turned the tide of the battle. Except for a few leviathans that have no good way to deal with them, the other shrimp soldiers and crabs are no match at all. At the moment, Umbrella Corporation's Hive underground base in Raccoon City. Lin Yu, who was quietly watching the Iron Hunters massacre the Chidori soldiers, suddenly received news from the Red Queen. Boss, according to your instructions, it has been detected that the World Security Council has bypassed SHIELD Director Nick Fury and issued an order to attack New York City with a nuclear bomb. Now the fighter planes are preparing to take off. As a time traveler, how could Lin Bao not know this plot? Although the World Security Council no longer has Pierce, the few remaining people are all fools who only care about themselves. They don't care about the life or death of ordinary people. In order to eliminate Chidori, they did not hesitate to bury the entire New York City with them. Although in the previous movie, Tony Stark was lucky enough to send the nuclear bomb into the other side of the portal. However, Lin Bao didn't want to pin his hopes on Tony Stark. His own appearance has originally brought too many variables to the world. If Tony fails this time, then his 500,000 biochemical army and the armed forces led by Wesker will all be damaged, over there. However, Lin Yu does not need to pay too much attention to the nuclear bomb that is about to be released. Because, with the Red Queen present, that nuclear bomb is not so easy to drop. Whether it's the military or SHIELD, their aircraft are connected to the internet. Now that it is connected to the internet, the Red Queen can easily control it. Let the plane fly for a while, and when the battle is completely over, let it carry the nuclear bomb to the portal. Lin Yu ordered softly. At the same time, just as the Red Queen reported the situation to Lin Yu, a fighter jet loaded with nuclear bombs also took off from the SHIELD space carrier and flew towards New York. Nick Fury was shocked, but he couldn't stop him. The World Security Council went beyond itself and issued orders directly to the flight crew. Nick Fury hurriedly took out his mobile phone and dialed Tony Stark's number. Tony, there is one thing I must tell you. A fighter jet carrying a nuclear bomb is heading towards you. The nuclear bomb is expected to arrive in New York in 5 minutes. Nick Fury said hurriedly. Then, he hurried back to his command room. On the big screen in the command room, surveillance and satellite images of New York City are being played. What a bunch of idiots. In this battle, the Umbrella Company has obviously gained an absolute advantage, yet they actually want to release a nuclear bomb. In the picture, there are Umbrella Company's biochemical army in the sky and on the ground. Although Chidori continued to rush through the portal, it was obvious that she could no longer make any splash. See here, Nick Fury suddenly thought, should he also call Lin Yu, the boss of the Umbrella Company? After all, he is the main force on the battlefield. The fighter jet carrying the nuclear bomb flew over from his SHIELD space carrier. If he misunderstood it, it would be in trouble. After thinking about it again, Nick Fury dialed Secretary Lin Yu's phone number. A bell rang from outside Lin Yu's office door. Immediately afterwards, with the phone in her hand, Alice opened Lin Yu's door and walked in. Lin Yu was naturally very happy to see Alice back. Alice took a deep look at her boss and then answered the phone. If someone else had called, Alice would definitely not answer the call at this time, but the caller ID turned out to be SHIELD Director. So, even though Alice had a lot to say to Lin Yu now, she still answered Nick Fury's call first. On the phone, Nick Fury's voice came. There were very few pleasantries and we went straight to the topic. The World Security Council directly passed me and issued an order to the flight crew to attack New York City with nuclear bombs. You must tell Mr. Lin about this situation as soon as possible. I have tried my best to stop the fighter jet, but it didn't success. Nick Fury is still trying his best to explain. However, Lin Yu had already taken the phone directly from Alice. Thank you for the reminder, Director Nick Fury, I understand. Goodbye. Lin Yu hung up the phone directly. At this time, Lin Yu didn't have time to chat with him. On the other side of the phone, Nick Fury suddenly heard Lin Yu's voice and was a little surprised. However, what is even more surprising is that Lin Bao did not care at all about the arrival of the nuclear bomb. And he hung up on himself so quickly. Nick Fury looked at the screen of his mobile phone and listened to the beep sound coming from the mobile phone, feeling confused. Did he hear what he said? That's a nuclear bomb. One is enough to destroy the entire New York. His men, as well as the hundreds of thousands of biochemical troops, would all be reduced to ashes. So, did he not hear what he said, or did he not care about it? Nick Fury's head hurts and he can't figure it out. However, he didn't want to call Lin Yu again. I don't want to, and I don't dare. At the moment, in Lin Yu's office, after putting down her phone, Alice hurriedly told Lin Yu about her physical condition. Through Alexia's testing, Alice's current physical indicators are more than 5 times stronger than ordinary people. Strength, speed, explosive power, recovery ability, etc. have all been improved a lot. Among them, the most terrifying thing is to restore ability. Any injury to Alice's body will cause her metabolism to accelerate suddenly. The acceleration of Xincheng's metabolism will cause the wound to heal quickly. However, when there is no injury, the body's metabolic rate is very stable. In other words, Alice's body will not age prematurely due to too fast metabolism. This is the result of perfectly integrate T-virus. If the integration is not good, it is very likely that the body's metabolic rate will remain high. In that case, it will very likely lead to rapid aging of the human body. Dry skin and loss of moisture. It's like, already. After introducing her current physical condition, Alice was in a pretty good mood. She had already done a simple test in Alexia's laboratory just now. The power of his punch is already about 600 kilograms. You know, even a punch from an adult man only weighs about 100 kilograms at most. In other words, in terms of strength alone, Alice is now comparable to the power stars of 6 ordinary adult men. However, this does not mean that Alice can only hit 6 grown men. The increase in strength is not addition. Moreover, Alice has not only enhanced her strength, but her other physical qualities have also improved greatly. Boss, if you go out again in the future, I can completely protect you. Alice said excitedly. Lin Yu smiled and nodded, unconvinced. Seeing her boss's expression, Alice knew that her boss still didn't believe that she could protect him. Alice's face suddenly showed a sly smile, and then she said to Lin Yu, "Boss, do you want me to show you my current strength?" She risked her life to inject the T-virus just to protect her boss in the future. Lin Yu doesn't believe that she can protect him, that's not possible. Alice can only show her strength and let her boss know that she already has the power to protect him. Lin Yu would never refuse Alice's sudden request. But Lin Yu's face showed a smile similar to Alice's. Then, he said slowly, "Okay, then I will practice with you." Boss, you. Alice doesn't understand Lin Yu's words. I am so strong now, but my boss is just an ordinary person, how can I practice with myself? I said to show off my current strength, not to fight against the boss. Instead, simply let your boss see how strong you are. Boss, I just need to punch the wall, and you can probably see how strong I am. Alice said weakly. But Lin Yu suddenly showed a smile. Then, he said slightly excitedly, "No, just punch me and try it. I'm very resistant to being punched." After speaking, Lin Yu lightly waved his fist. His fist suddenly drew an afterimage in midair. Even Alice barely saw it clearly. And it seemed effortless with a gentle wave. There was a buzzing sound in the air. This scene immediately made Alice's eyes wide open. Although she is only a woman, she also understands that the sound that appeared when the boss waved his arms just now is definitely not something ordinary people can do. Being able to make such a sound shows that your boss is definitely not an ordinary person. His physical fitness is even better than mine. Alice's eyes were filled with shock. She said in disbelief, "Boss, aren't you an ordinary person?" "Why?" Alice didn't know how to describe her mood. It was clear that he was injected with the T-virus just to protect his boss. But now it seems that the boss is not weak. Haha, I have never said that I am an ordinary person. Come on, punch and see who among us is stronger, Lin Yu said with a chuckle. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu took a direct stance. The legs were slightly spread apart, bent, and facing the direction of Alice. Seeing that her boss was actually prepared to let her spar with him, and knowing that her boss was not an ordinary person, Alice stopped hesitating. Pull back and throw out a punch. "Boss, I'm here," Alice shouted, and her fist struck Lin Yu's body very quickly. Although the fist was very fast, Lin Yu could see that Alice's punch would not hit her body. She couldn't really do it to herself. Even if she doesn't block it, her fist will stop in front of her chest. But Lin Yu's idea of competing with Alice this time is actually to tell her the secret of his powerful body. This was a secret that Lin Yu was not prepared to tell anyone. Now, finally, the first person to know is coming. Alice, it's worth telling her this secret. So, Lin Yu also took action without hesitation. Moreover, Lin Bao is faster. After integrating a variety of powerful genes, Lin Yu's body is much faster than Alice in terms of strength and speed. What's even more terrifying is that Lin Yu used the power of thunder inadvertently. A blue light suddenly appeared in his hand. A ball of lightning burst out in his hand. Let the speed of his hand more than double again. But the power of thunder is not what Lin Yu wants to use. When that hand was about to meet Alice's fist, the power of thunder was withdrawn by Lin Yu. He didn't want the power of thunder in his body to hurt Alice. But all this is completely different in Alice's eyes. She just saw an electric light erupting in the boss's hand, and then one of the boss's hands suddenly turned into an afterimage, instantly appearing in front of her fist. Bang! Backquote. Lin Yu's hands are palm-shaped. Alice's fist hit Lin Yu's palm instantly. In other words, Lin Yu's palm caught Alice's fist. The fists and palms met, and a terrifying air flow burst out. The blow made their clothes fly. The paper on Lin Yu's desk was also blown everywhere by the airflow. The whole office was in chaos. But Alice froze on the spot, her heart filled with shock. Her fist was still in Lin Yu's hand. She could feel that in that palm, there seemed to be extremely terrifying power. Hitting it with his fist was like hitting a mountain. Obviously, the boss did not use his full strength. Moreover, Alice could clearly see the thunder just now. She originally thought she was about to be shocked, but when her fist touched her, the thunder suddenly disappeared. The boss must have taken it back. "Boss, why are you so strong? Why are you so fast?" Alice still can't believe it. He was clearly injected with the T-virus and was already incredibly strong. However, this competition truly showed that the boss was stronger and faster than me. At the moment, Lin Yu laughed again and joked, "How about it, do you still want to protect me?" Hearing the boss's teasing voice, Alice seemed to realize something and hurriedly pulled her little hand back from Lin Yu's palm. In his mouth, he muttered in a low voice, "Boss, you are so miserable for me. If I knew that my boss was so powerful, I would definitely not inject the T-virus." Just as New York City was engulfed in war, in a New York military base not far from downtown New York, General Ross was standing in his office, looking through the office window at the Chidori and Umbrella Company's biochemical armies flying over New York. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was thinking about something. A few minutes later, a subordinate knocked on the door and walked in, coming behind General Ross. After saluting, he reported loudly, "General, as per your request, 2 helicopter formations and 2 special combat teams have been assembled. Please give your instructions." After hearing the soldier's report, a light flashed in General Ross's eyes. "The aliens over New York have nothing to do with me. General Ross has been given many orders from above to dispatch troops to help shield resist alien invasion." But General Ross prevaricated. Not even a single soldier was sent out. And now, he still was not prepared to send troops to New York. 2. General Ross once again took a deep look in the direction of Raccoon City, and coldly ordered Li Hao, "Move out everyone. General Ross is a man who takes revenge. Now, the New York military base has almost allowed him to create his own private armed force. Even if he doesn't obey the orders above, it won't be a big deal. As for the umbrella company, he has long wanted to take action. It's just that I have never found a good opportunity. And now, the umbrella company has dispatched so many biological and chemical armies at once, as well as countless armed forces. Their internal defense must be quite empty now. So, only General Ross would send out several of his teams to capture Lin Yu, the big boss of the umbrella company. Seeing the 2 helicopter teams, a total of 10 armed helicopters taking off slowly, General Ross showed a sinister smile on his face. Now that the Hulk has surrendered to S.H.I.E.L.D., let's get the umbrella company's bio-monster technology. Through the battle in New York, General Ross has deeply understood how powerful those biochemical monsters are. At this time, the whole world is paying attention to the alien invasion of the Earth. No one noticed that 2 armed helicopter teams departed from the New York military base and flew towards Raccoon City. Even on the S.H.I.E.L.D. space carrier very close to the New York military base, Nick Fury did not find these 2 armed helicopter teams. He never thought that at this time, when the fate of the Earth was at stake, General Ross would not resist the aliens, but he would actually take action against the umbrella company. But Nick Fury doesn't know, but that doesn't mean Lin Yu doesn't know. After the Red Queen appeared, it was hard to find anything on this Earth that Lin Yu didn't know about. Unless it's a deserted place. Otherwise, as long as there is a signal network and satellites can take pictures, Lin Yu will basically know it. When General Ross ordered 2 armed helicopter squads to set off with his 2 special operations teams, the Red Queen promptly informed Lin Gui. After hearing the news, Lin Yu couldn't help but smile slightly. It seems that there is really no need to keep this General Ross. Alice, don't you want to show off your strength? Lin Yu turned his head, glanced at Alice, who was standing quietly beside him, and said with a smile. Alice was slightly startled when she heard this. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu further explained. A total of 10 armed helicopters and 2 special operations teams just set off from the New York military base. Listening to Lin Yu's words, Alice's eyes gradually lit up. She already understood what the boss meant. The fight with the boss just now was really not enjoyable. Moreover, even if the boss is terrifyingly strong, Alice is not willing to take too heavy a blow. And now, a group of soldiers from the New York military district came unexpectedly. Perfect. Okay, boss, leave it to me. Alice squeezed her fist and made a crackling sound. After being injected with the T-virus, Alice's personality seemed to be slightly affected. She seems to have become much more bellicose. When I heard that I needed to take action, I actually became faintly excited. At the moment, in the sky only a dozen kilometers away from New York City, a fighter jet is flying rapidly. The pilot on the plane had already touched the red button with one finger. As long as he presses this button, the nuclear missiles mounted on the plane will be released immediately. The entire New York will be destroyed under this attack. The flight crew's mood was also quite tense. After all, as long as he gently presses the red button, the lives of tens of millions of people in New York City will be lost to this nuclear missile. But he had to obey orders from his superiors. Simply, he decided not to think about anything and press the button directly. But what surprised him was that after pressing the missile launch button, there was no reaction. The missile was not launched, and there was no movement on the instrument panel in front of the aircraft. Malfunctioned, the flight attendant hurriedly checked. And just when he was looking at the dashboard, on the instrument panel, it actually showed that the aircraft's automatic navigation had been turned on. What's the situation? When did you turn on autopilot? The flight attendant was terrified. This is not an exercise, but actual combat. And he also carries a nuclear bomb. The pilot hurriedly tried to regain control of the fighter jet. But my own operations are completely useless. Immediately afterwards, the flight attendant wanted to report his situation to the superior. But he was horrified to find that the communication system was also broken. The fighter pilot was on the verge of tears. The plane cannot be controlled, the missile cannot be launched, and even communications have been cut off. Moreover, his fighter jets actually began to circle around New York City, while fighting was still going on the battlefield in New York. A small-scale battle started in Raccoon City. Two special operations teams dispatched by General Ross got off the helicopter from the edge of Raccoon City. Then, they chose a small road, concealed themselves, and headed towards the Umbrella Company headquarters building. General Ross, on the other hand, is personally taking command at the New York military base. On the screen in front of him, there were not only satellite images, but also images captured by the cameras carried by the team. General Ross knew very well that even if he kept hiding his presence, these two teams would be discovered sooner or later. But, the later it is discovered, the greater the chance of success in recapturing Lin Yu. As long as Lin Yu did not escape and was still in that building, General Ross would be 100% sure to arrest Lin Yu. These two special operations teams were his last resort. Because a total of 20 soldiers from these two teams were all injected with diluted super soldier serum. Their strength is several times greater than that of ordinary soldiers. Last time, after the Abomination incident, General Ross had begun secret experiments on a diluted version of the super soldier serum. After dilution, it was injected into the bodies of the soldiers he carefully selected. The success rate has greatly increased. Although there would be accidents, all the remaining super soldier serum stocks in the New York military district allowed him to complete 20 super soldiers. These 20 super warriors can definitely defeat a team of hundreds of people. Moreover, it is most suitable to carry out this kind of arrest mission. The two armed helicopter teams are only responsible for transportation and are used for emergency purposes at critical moments. All of General Ross's hopes were pinned on these two teams of super soldiers. But, just when the two teams entered the urban area of Raccoon City and had not yet seen the Umbrella Company headquarters building, something unexpected happened. A woman wearing a black tights and riding a stylish motorcycle suddenly appeared in front of the team. And parked the motorcycle on the path in front of them. It was originally a small alley, but the motorcycle stopped sideways, completely blocking the road. At the New York military base, General Ross frowned slightly as he looked at the scene in front of him. A woman, standing in front of his two super soldier teams. Looking for death. General Ross is not a pity person. And no accidents are allowed in this operation. He ordered without hesitation. Anyone who dares to block this operation will be killed without mercy. In the camera in front of General Ross, a soldier raised an assault rifle equipped with a silencer under the command of the team leader. And he pulled the trigger without any hesitation. Dong dong dong. 3 dull voices rang in the alley. But the weird thing is, after the gunfire, the woman's figure suddenly disappeared from the screen in front of General Ross. Only the motorcycle was still there quietly. Where are the people? General Ross was slightly startled. These soldiers, before being injected with the diluted super soldier serum, were elite soldiers of the New York military district. It is impossible for them to miss at such a close range. But why didn't we see the woman's body? Could it be that the lens is broken? General Ross moved forward, trying to find the woman's body in the picture. But, just at this moment, a black figure suddenly appeared in the camera lens. That woman is not dead. Moreover, a dagger suddenly appeared in her hand, and it instantly swiped the neck of a soldier in front of the camera. The speed is so fast that it turns into an afterimage. And the blood on the soldier's neck instantly surged. New York military base. General Ross looked at the scene in front of him, his eyes suddenly widened, and a feeling of infinite terror instantly arose in his heart. These two teams of my own are definitely very strong. He had tested their strength before. Everyone's physical fitness is more than 3 times stronger than that of ordinary soldiers. But, facing that woman, these super soldiers couldn't even touch her shadow. Not only that, I couldn't even see that woman clearly on the screen. Who is she? Why so strong? Why do you want to stop your own army? Come here, quickly find out who that woman is. General Ross shouted. Behind him, several of his men responded hurriedly, Okay, General. Several information soldiers hurriedly started searching on the computer. Through the screenshots of the video just now, they quickly found the woman's identity in the military's information system. Immediately afterwards, a soldier came up behind General Ross and reported, General, this woman is the secretary of Lin Yu, the actual controller of Umbrella Company, and also his personal assistant. What? General Ross said doubtfully. A secretary. Personal assistant. How could he be stronger than his own super soldier? Kill her, General Ross shouted into the communicator. He didn't believe that his entire team of 2 super soldiers would lose to a woman. In the screen, the battle continues. However, at such a close distance, the soldiers could not fire at all. He could only take out his dagger and fight the Black Shadow in close combat. But, compared to these guys injected with diluted super soldier serum, Alice is faster and stronger. She easily shuttled around the soldiers, constantly using daggers to inflict injuries on their bodies. Occasionally, seize the opportunity and kill him. Before Alice was injected with the T-virus, she had trained with Wesker for a period of time. But there are few opportunities for actual combat. This time, after being injected with the T-virus, the movements she had learned in her mind seemed to become more and more clear. In actual combat, her movements became more fluid. The super soldier who could have resisted for a few moments was soon completely smitten. There's no way he can keep up with Alice's speed. Finally, 2 minutes later, the ground in this small alley is already covered with corpses. Blood is flowing everywhere. It looks like hell on earth. On the screen in front of General Ross, the camera lens happened to fall on the blood. The picture is filled with blood. A black figure wiped the blood from his dagger on the body on the ground, then turned around and returned to the motorcycle. There was a sound of a motorcycle starting up, and the black figure disappeared from General Ross's sight. At the moment, General Ross's expression was quite ugly. The whole room was filled with a cold atmosphere. General Ross seems to be on the verge of breaking out. Anger has almost made him lose his mind. Gunship helicopter team, all mobilize, blow up the Umbrella Company building for me. I want them all to be buried with my super soldiers. General Ross roared into the communicator. These 2 armed helicopter teams were originally used only for transportation and force deterrence. But now he was overwhelmed with anger. He is no longer prepared to intimidate. He wants the Umbrella Company to pay the price for what he has done. But, when General Ross's order was given, there was no reply from the helicopter team in the communicator. General Ross suddenly frowned. Then, he asked again on the communicator, "What are you doing? Have you heard my order?" After General Ross finished speaking, a frightened roar suddenly came from the communicator. It seems that those flight crews encountered something terrible. Quickly, turn on the monitoring equipment on the helicopter. General Ross ordered hurriedly. Soon, the scene in front of him changed into a helicopter team scene. But, as soon as the screen opened, General Ross saw a dark green shadow flashing past the camera. That speed was faster than that of the woman in black just now. In the footage, the helicopter team has been completely wiped out. All the flight crew members had their heads chopped off. The scene was extremely tragic. Inside each helicopter, there were 2 headless corpses sitting, which looked extremely terrifying. Seeing this scene, General Ross suddenly staggered back a few steps. Then, he sat down on the ground. In his mind, the black figure, the dark green shadow, and the corpses on the ground constantly appeared. General Ross suddenly felt that his eyes suddenly turned black. Then, he passed out directly. The stronger the personality, the easier it is to be defeated by failure. And this time the blow was really too big. General Ross finally couldn't bear it anymore. Umbrella Corporation's Hive underground base in Raccoon City. Lin Yu was still standing quietly in front of the big screen in his office. Just after his super hunter killed all the helicopter pilots, Lin Yu slowly opened his eyes. With the existence of the Red Queen, Lin Yu cannot hide anything around the world. What's more, those armed helicopters were parked on the edge of Raccoon City. Raccoon City is his base camp. How could Lin Yu not find those armed helicopters? So, just when Alice set out to intercept those super soldiers, Lin Yu summoned the hunter in the biological cultivation tank in his mind. A single hunter easily eliminated the 2 armed helicopter teams that had not yet had time to take off. At this moment, Alice hasn't come back yet. But, there was a knock on the door of Lin Yu's office. "Come in," Lin Yu said slowly. The person who opened the door and came in was one of Wesker's men. In his hands, he actually held 2 test tubes. After entering the door, the soldier reported to Lin Yuhui, "Boss, Captain Wesker asked me to send these 2 back first. He said that the Hulk's blood has not been collected yet. He only got Loki's blood and the Chitauri soldier's blood. After saying that, the soldier handed the 2 test tubes to Lin Yu's hands. After the soldiers left, Lin Yu's eyes burst out with extremely excited light. In addition to controlling the portal, Wesker's team also has another goal. That is to collect the blood of Chidori soldiers, Hulk and Loki. These are also the 2 most important tasks assigned to him by Lin Yu. Although the Hulk has not been collected yet, these 2 genes have exceeded Lin Yu's expectations. Their total experience exceeds 700 points. And it only takes 630 points to upgrade the trunk of my biochemical technology tree again. Just half an hour before Lin Yu received the 2 test tubes, Loki, who was piloting the Chidori flight, was suddenly chased and intercepted by 7 or 8 Iron Hunters. Although they did not kill Loki, they left many wounds on his body. Even his face was scratched by the sharp claws of the Iron Hunter. Loki covered the wound on his face, his expression extremely ugly. All the Leviathan beasts are dispatched. I will turn the entire earth into ruins, he yelled crazily. Originally, he just wanted to occupy the earth, but now, he feels that he must teach these hateful earthlings some lessons. Since those Chidori flight machines can't fight against those flexible flight monsters, then all Leviathan beasts will be dispatched. Although those biochemical monsters are flexible, it is still difficult to deal with the huge Leviathan. So, just dispatch all the Leviathan beasts first. There was a crazy look in Loki's eyes. But, what he didn't know was, the reason why those steel hunters didn't kill him was not because of his good driving skills. Rather, they have collected enough blood. Umbrella Company. Raccoon City Hive Underground Base. Lin Yu has not absorbed these 2 genes yet. In Lin Yu's line of sight, systematic annotations of these 2 genes have appeared. Gene name: Giants of Jotunheim Bloodline Gene: Loki, the god of trickery. Gene strength: 4 stars. Available experience points: 400 points. Gene contains ability ranking: Strength 75, Agility 75, Defense 50, Attack 50, Attribute Frost 150 inches. Loki's genetic attributes are very strong. After all, the Giants of Jotunheim are a race comparable to the Asgard Protoss. Although they ultimately lost to Asgard. But, their bloodline is not weak. Moreover, Loki's origin is not simple. He is the son of Laufey, leader of the Giants of Jotunheim. In the realm of Giants of Jotunheim, this identity is almost equivalent to Thor's identity in Asgard. Therefore, his genes are naturally not too weak. After reading the introduction of Loki's genes, 670, Lin Yu's hand flashed with light, and Loki's genetic test tube disappeared into Lin Yu's hands. Lin Yu is not prepared to absorb 2 genes at once. Absorbing too much at one time can easily cause your body to change too quickly, making it difficult to adapt. Therefore, Lin Yu first absorbed Loki's genes. Wait for Loki's genes to be absorbed, and then absorb Chidori's genes. With the disappearance of Loki's genes, immediately afterwards, the biochemical technology tree system in Lin Yu's body also burst out with fierce blue light. 5 branches, which improve a considerable amount of experience. The main experience value has also increased directly from 2,370 points to 2,770 points. There are still 230 points left to upgrade to level 3. At the same time, Lin Yu's body is also changing rapidly. Strength and speed are all increasing rapidly. But, after experiencing so many promotions, Lin Yu has gradually adapted to this feeling. Just when Lin Yu's body was changing, the super hunter who had just finished his mission and was rushing back suddenly stopped where he was. His body is also changing rapidly. The originally dark green scales actually began to show a hint of blue. Those blue lines gradually spread from the edges of the scales, and eventually spread to the whole body. In addition to scales, some frost also suddenly appeared on his claws. It seemed that his claws became very cold in an instant. At the same time, the super hunter's eyes also turned dark blue. This change lasted for about 10 minutes. The form of the super hunter is completely different from before. Now, it has many blue lines all over its body and looks very gorgeous. And, every time he takes a step, his feet will leave a small piece of frost crystal on the ground. It seems that its body has also become extremely cold. 10 minutes later, it is finally on its way back again. And at the moment, in the Hive underground base, Lin Yu still doesn't know about the Super Hunter's form changes. The changes in Lin Yu's own body have gradually slowed down. And Lin Yu finally began to look at the other test tube in his hand. The systematic introduction of the test tube also appeared in Lin Yu's sight. Gene name: Chidori Soldier Gene. Gene strength: 3 stars. Experience points available: 240 points. Gene contains ability ranking: Strength 30, Agility 30, Defense 30, Attack 30, Intelligence 30, Special Body Mechanization Adaptability 90 inches. The Chidori gene and the previous abilities are all average. However, the last item turned out to be a special branch, and it had a full 90 experience points. However, Lin Yu understood it after seeing the introduction in brackets after the special. Chidori are a very special race. They transformed their bodies into semi-mechanized bodies. Therefore, their genes also became more adapted to machinery during this long process of integration with machinery. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu's hand flashed with light, and the test tube containing the Chidori gene disappeared. Immediately afterwards, the biochemical technology tree in Lin Yu's mind instantly burst into violent blue light. Branch experience increases rapidly, and the main experience instantly soared above the level 3 mark. Reached 3010 experience points. It exceeds the 3000 experience points required to advance to the 3rd level of the biochemical technology tree. The biochemical technology tree has finally been promoted to level 3. And at the moment, the system prompt finally sounded in Lin Yu's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The main experience value has reached the promotion requirements. The biochemical technology tree has been upgraded to level 3. A biochemical culture tank will be awarded as well as a new biochemical species, the 1st generation tyrant, which has been stored in the new biochemical culture tank. Host, please continue to work hard, continue to collect strong genes, and improve the level of the main body. The next level will reward more powerful biochemical species. At this time, how could Lin Yu take care of the next level psychobiochemical species? He hurriedly controlled the 3rd biochemical cultivation tank in his mind and released the newly acquired 1st generation tyrant. Suddenly, Lin Yu's eyes flashed. A huge guy appeared in Lin Yu's office. But, what's a bit ominous is that this guy's height is really too tall. His head directly penetrated the top of Lin Yu's room and appeared in the space on the upper floor. Lin Yu even heard bursts of exclamations coming from upstairs. Several umbrella company employees screamed in fright when they saw the huge amounts of heads. Lin Yu suddenly couldn't laugh or cry. Fortunately, I still have a room upstairs. If it were on the top floor, wouldn't it mean that his head was directly pushed into the soil? Lin Yu hurriedly took back the huge thing in front of him. Then, opened the door and walked out. The situation on the New York battlefield is now basically stable. Those Chidori have nothing to do with their own biochemical army. And his own biochemical army can't do anything against those huge Leviathan beasts for the time being. So, Lin Yu still has enough time to take a good look at his newly acquired biochemical species. A few minutes later, Lin Yu came to a wide training ground. This training ground is specially used to experiment with biochemical monsters. The ground and walls of the venue are very hard. And the space is large enough, and there is no problem with the height. Lin Yu stood still and released the 1st generation tyrant again. This time, the 1st generation tyrant was fully displayed in front of Lin Yu. If we were to say what was the most powerful and domineering biochemical monster of Umbrella Company in movies and games in previous lives, then everyone would definitely name it in unison. That is the tyrant. The tyrant in front of Lin Yu does not look like the original tyrant in the Resident Evil movie. It's more like the later T-103 tyrant. However, the tyrant is not wearing the black leather jacket unique to T-103, but is directly in the final awakening form. The tyrant's height is probably nearly 4 meters. The muscles on the body are quite exaggerated, full of a strong sense of strength. The scariest thing is his 2 arms. It is both thick and long, hanging on both sides of the body, almost reaching the thighs and knees. And his 2 palms have completely turned into 2 giant claws. Lin Yu has no doubt that this guy can tear a Leviathan to pieces with just 1 claw. The 1st generation tyrant had already exuded the aura of a peerless ferocious beast before he even made any move. It looks extremely scary. Lin Yu is still looking forward to the emergence of the tyrant. But Lin Yu didn't expect that the first generation of tyrants was already so powerful. He originally thought that the first generation tyrant should be the original tyrant in the previous life movie, the one with sarcomas all over his body and even his heart exposed. However, it seems now that this tyrant is definitely stronger than he imagined. That being the case, then, why not let this first generation tyrant go out and test his strength? Today, there has never been a Chidori flight machine coming through the portal in New York, only Leviathan beasts passing through the portal one after another. This resulted in the fact that my super hunters and thunderlickers were no longer able to effectively cause damage to the enemy. After all, the Leviathan beast's body is too huge. Its armor is also quite thick. It is very difficult for super hunters and thunderlickers to cause damage to them. It's even harder not to kill them. And Lin Yu knew that there would be more Leviathan beasts on the other side of the portal. There is even an even bigger Chidori mothership. It is impossible for Lin Yu to let that Chidori mothership come to Earth. But the more Leviathan beasts, the better. Whether this kind of thing is used for research or used as raw material for cloning, there should be no problem. Then, take action, the first generation tyrant. Lin Yu drank softly. Then, he also gave the order to the Red Queen to open the secret passage of this training ground. A huge amount of passage diagonally connected to the ground appeared on the wall of the training ground. And at the moment, the tyrant's eyes suddenly lit up. Turn around slowly, pass through the portal, and quickly run outside. Every step he took made the entire Hive underground base tremble. The weight of the first generation tyrant was simply terrifying. Finally, on the edge of Raccoon City, at a secret exit location of the Umbrella Company, a huge figure came out of the underground. Then, it suddenly started running. The speed is getting faster and faster. Every step can almost cover a distance of tens of meters. Every time a step hits the ground, it makes a violent explosion-like sound. At this moment, in the Umbrella Corporation Hive underground base, Lin Yu also walked back to his office again. The biochemical technology tree has been upgraded to the current level, and each biochemical species has a high level of intelligence. Especially the first generation tyrant who just appeared, Lin Yu can even feel its thoughts. If you don't control it, its intelligence is almost comparable to that of an ordinary human being. So, after Lin Yu gave him the order directly, there was no need to worry about him anymore. He himself will take the initiative to follow Lin Yu's orders, go to the New York battlefield, and do what he should do. At the moment, downtown New York, looking at more and more Leviathan beasts in the portal, the smile on Loki's face became more and more. Chidori did not disappoint herself. Such a huge army, at least 30 or 40 Leviathan beasts, is enough to destroy the entire Earth. Those Avengers, except for killing a few Leviathan beasts at the beginning, now have no way to kill any Leviathan beast. His brother, Thor, has also used up all his magical power and can no longer release lightning. The big green guy was so tired that he could hardly get up. There was no way he could deal with the Leviathan beast. And that arrogant Tony Stark has scars all over his steel battle suit. If he attacks the Leviathan again, his own life may be in danger. And those biochemical armies seemed to have no interest at all in the huge Leviathan beast. They were just on guard on the ground, and if any Chidori soldiers appeared, they would rush forward. But now, the Chidori soldiers are no longer around. They all hid in the belly of the Leviathan beast and did not come out. And Loki also knows one thing, that is, the Leviathan beast is just an appetizer. Behind the portal, there is also a huge Chidori mothership. When the portal expands to the point where the mothership can pass through, the Earth will no longer be able to resist. The Chidori mothership is a real killer weapon. At this time, in the center of New York, the Avengers gathered here again. Everyone looked quite tired, even Thor was hurt. The United States captain and Natasha Romanoff were even more bruised. Everyone was squatting on the ground, their chests heaving violently. They looked at more and more Leviathan beasts in the sky, and looked at New York, which had been completely smashed into ruins by Leviathan beasts, with heavy hearts. The Avengers are in despair. Today's Earth doesn't have the strength to deal with these powerful alien beings. It seems that the battle situation has been basically determined. Loki already stood on the edge of victory. On board the SHIELD space carrier. Nick Fury also saw everything happening in New York on the big screen. In his heart, he sighed slightly. Whether it's the Avengers team or the Umbrella Company's biochemical army, they have all tried their best. But there are too many enemies, and the Leviathan beast is really terrifying. The Avengers, except Thor, are all humans, and there are times when they are too tired to move. And Thor's divine power is not unlimited. The Umbrella Company's biochemical armies are indeed powerful, but they are too small and do not carry any powerful thermal weapons. With their claws and teeth, it is impossible to deal with such a huge creature. Hill, the space carrier is moving. I want to meet these aliens in person. Nick Fury's eyes were full of tragedy. Behind him, Agent Hill was stunned for a moment, then seemed to understand something, and his face became serious. The firepower on this space carrier is indeed very strong, but it is too inflexible. It is estimated that even if you can kill a few Leviathan beasts, they will soon be torn apart by the enemy. However, in the current situation, even if it means death, you have to go. SHIELD Director Nick Fury is ready to die. Okay, Director, Hill responded. Immediately afterwards, under the command of Agent Hill, the space carrier slowly moved towards the sky above New York City. But, at this time, Nick Fury, standing in front of the big screen, was suddenly startled. Something seemed to appear on the big screen in front of him. Nick Fury hurriedly moved forward, and a huge monster appeared in his sight. That monster is much taller than the Hulk. The body is bright gray, and its 2 claws are surprisingly large. Every time he takes a step, he can fly dozens of meters high. When we reached the edge of New York City, it exerted both legs at the same time, and its body instantly rose hundreds of meters. Then, like a comet, it landed directly on the New York battlefield. Boom! A Leviathan beast was directly guessed by him and fell directly from the sky. With just one attack, a huge Leviathan beast was instantly killed. Then, his body took off again, heading towards another Leviathan beast not far away. Its 5 giant claws opened and easily penetrated the Leviathan beast's body. One stroke, Leviathan was disemboweled by it. Countless Chitauri soldiers fell out of the belly of the Leviathan beast. Some fell to death, and those who did not were also overwhelmed by the swarm of super hunters and thunder lickers. The body of the first-generation tyrant rose into the sky again. As soon as he joined the battlefield, he showed everyone what a real monster is. Peerless monster. Across the screen, Nick Fury can feel the terrifying power contained in that monster's body. The moment the figure of the first-generation tyrant appeared on the battlefield, Loki's mood instantly panicked. The body of the first-generation tyrant looked even bigger than the Hulk. And its 2 hands are completely the most terrifying weapons. Completely different from the Hulk, who looks harmless to humans and animals, the tyrant seems to be born specifically for fighting. Except for his 2 giant claws, the body of the first-generation tyrant seemed to be quite heavy. Whether it's muscles or bones, the density is terrifying. Every step he takes can create a big hole in the ground. And, just with the weight of his body, he can directly step down a huge Leviathan beast from the sky. This is simply a complete killing machine. Loki, completely panicked. Before the portal is fully opened to allow the Chitauri mothership to pass through, all he can count on are these 40 or 50 Leviathan beasts. But now, after this monster appeared, it killed 4 or 5 Leviathan beasts in an instant. Moreover, he is still killing. Those Leviathan beasts were simply vulnerable to him. With a single stroke of his giant claw, he can penetrate the thick armor of the Leviathan beast. With just one kick, the Leviathan beast can be kicked down from the sky. Simply, it is the nemesis of the Leviathan beast. Loki was in a dilemma. Seeing the number of Leviathan beasts decreasing rapidly. And Leviathan poses no threat to that monster at all. To deal with it, you must summon the Chitauri flight unit. But there are hundreds of thousands of other biochemical armies waiting on the battlefield. If you summon him, you will die. If you don't summon it, you will have to let that monster kill the Leviathan beasts one by one. Hard to decide, but immediately afterwards, there was a fierce expression on Loki's face. No matter how many Chitauri soldiers die, it has nothing to do with them. And if you let that monster kill too many Leviathan beasts, you will soon fall into an absolute disadvantage. No, even if Chitauri fights with his life, he still has to fight until the portal expands enough for the Chitauri mothership to pass through. In the deal between Loki and Thanos, Loki gained temporary command of the Chitauri Legion. So, his orders, Chitauri soldiers must obey. Send out the entire army and kill that monster. Loki directly ordered the entire army to move out. He's ready to give Chitauri a hard time. After Loki gave the order, countless Chitauri flights instantly flew out of the portal that had become very large. They were on the other side of the portal and had no idea what was happening on the battlefield. Therefore, I was very excited when I heard that I could go out. The Chitauri army, cheering, flew out of the portal. But, what they don't know is that when they pass through the portal, they will face only death. At the same time, the Chitauri warriors began to spray out one after another from the Leviathan beast's body. They can no longer stay in the Leviathan beast's body. If you stay there, you can only wait for death. The entire sky of New York City, as well as the ground, was once again occupied by countless Chitauri soldiers. But, the Umbrella Company's 500,000 biochemical army is already gearing up. In the sky, 300 steel hunters turned into thin black lines again. On the ground, 200,000 thunder lickers stuck out their disgusting tongues and started chasing the Chitauri soldiers again to bite Kili. 300,000 super hunters emerged from the shadows again, and their sharp claws began to harvest the lives of the Chitauri soldiers. Under Loki's order, countless Chitauri flight machines began to gather, releasing terrifying firepower attacks on the body of the first-generation tyrant. But, what made Loki a little confused was that the monster didn't even hide in the face of the overwhelming fire attack. His body resisted those attacks and was not injured at all. And, the target of that monster is very clear, it is those Leviathan beasts. No matter how the Chitauri soldiers attacked, he didn't even bother to look at them. The figure flew across the sky quickly, and one after another Leviathan beasts died under his giant claws. The whole of New York was once again in flames. On a street in the middle of a battlefield in New York. The Avengers are still gathered here. They did not take the initiative to attack. They only occasionally attacked Chitauri soldiers when they encountered them. They have completely become the foil of this war. But, they are all very happy. Fortunately, there is such a terrifying organization as the Umbrella Corporation on Earth. Otherwise, they will definitely die here. During the breaks in the battle, they would all look at the violent figure. Every time he jumps, he can appear on a Leviathan. Every time it lands, it makes a sound like the earth is shaking. At this moment, Thor suddenly said to the Hulk beside him, "Are you related?" In his opinion, the Hulk and the first-generation tyrant are quite similar in size. However, the first-generation tyrant was more aggressive and more tireless in fighting. Hulk's mind is not yet mature and he does not understand what Thor means. But, the other Avengers on the side heard it. Tony Stark curled his lips and said, "How could they be relatives? If Hulk was that powerful, the battle would have been over long ago." Upon hearing this, a group of people immediately nodded in agreement. Really, they are both big guys, and compared to that monster, Hulk looks weak. At the moment, on board the SHIELD space carrier, Nick Fury looked at the screen, showing the first-generation tyrant showing off his power, and his depressed mood suddenly became relieved. He hurriedly said to the Hill agent, "Stop, there's no need to go." After hearing Nick Fury's words, the Hill agent hurriedly issued a stop order. Then, she also came over and looked at the big screen in confusion. Seeing the bright gray figure, Hill was immediately quite surprised. Asked Nick Fury, "Director, where did that monster come from?" The strength of the first-generation tyrant was so strong that in just a few seconds while Hill looked at the screen, he easily destroyed a Leviathan beast again. It's simply eye-popping. You can feel the terrifying power through the screen. Hearing Hill's question, Nick Fury didn't even think about it and said slowly, "It must be from the Umbrella Company. Other forces and organizations cannot create such a terrifying guy." The power of the Umbrella Company has long been deeply imprinted in Nick Fury's mind. Umbrella Corporation's Raccoon City Hive underground base. In Lin Yu's office. Soon, the hunters who went out to hunt the two helicopter teams came back. The brand new image of a hunter also surprised Lin Yu. Obviously, by absorbing Loki's genes this time, the Predator evolved the Frost ability. His body exuded a cold aura all the time. If his frost-covered claws hit an enemy, they will definitely suffer extreme pain. Lin Yu is still very happy about this change in the hunter. After thinking about it, Lin Yu decided to give it a new name. From the original first-generation hunter to the super hunter, now let's call it a frost hunter. Lin Yu smiled slightly, and the figure of the frost hunter disappeared in front of Lin Yu. Returned to the biochemical culture tank in Lin Yu's mind. A few minutes later, Alice, who went out to perform a mission, also returned to the Hive underground base. At the moment, she was still wearing the combat uniform from the previous battle. Wearing a black tights, he looks heroic and completely different from his previous image. But Lin Yu seems to be more familiar with this image. After all, in the Resident Evil movie in her previous life, Alice's dress was similar. After entering the door, Alice smiled lightly at Lin Yu. It is more than words. Subsequently, Alice came to Lin Yu's side, and the two looked at the New York battlefield on the big screen. This is ours. The situation of the war has become more and more obvious. The Chidori army, although crazy, poured into the huge amounts of the portal. However, the speed at which they came in could not match the killing speed of the Umbrella Company's biochemical army. Those biochemical monsters don't seem to know how to be tired at all. The most terrifying thing is the first-generation tyrant. After the first-generation tyrant joined the battlefield, he defeated all the 40 or 50 Leviathan beasts in less than 10 minutes. As for the Chidori Legion, they only have these Leviathan beasts. They have all died at the hands of the first-generation tyrant. At this point, the Chidori Legion was completely unable to organize an effective attack. At the moment, New York battlefield, Loki had fallen to the ground. He quietly hid in a corner where no one could see him, watching the battle in the sky with a gloomy expression. Loki felt a little uncomfortable. It was planned well, but I didn't expect that such a big accident would happen. Those monsters are really terrifying. The Chidori army is no match at all. Now, all Loki can count on is the Chidori mothership. Only the arrival of the mothership can give yourself the last chance. The weapons on the mothership, with thousands of cannons fired at once, can even directly destroy the Earth. Under the threat of such terrifying weapons, Loki believes that even those biochemical armies must surrender to him. But that's when Loki suddenly discovered that a human fighter jet flew from the distant sky and flew towards the portal. Loki was slightly startled. What are the human fighter planes here to mix in? He had seen this type of flight vehicle on the SHIELD space carrier before. It is said that it is the crystallization of mankind's most advanced technology. It's just that Loki doesn't like this garbage. After a casual glance, Loki stopped paying attention to it. But on board the SHIELD space carrier, Nick Fury, who had been paying attention to the battlefield situation, suddenly widened his eyes after seeing the fighter jet. Stunned, how did that fighter jet get to New York? Moreover, why did you go directly to the portal? Is it possible that he wants to sacrifice his life for justice? Nick Fury was puzzled. He just knew that the Umbrella Company's biochemical army was very powerful, but no one outside knew about the Red Queen. Of course, Nick Fury didn't know that at the moment on that fighter jet, the pilot was completely frightened. He pulled hard on the handle on his seat. Normally, as long as he pulls the handle, he will be ejected from the plane by the ejection device under his seat. That way, you can skydive by yourself. But now, he has been pulling it for dozens of minutes, and the skin on his hand is broken, but the handle seems to be stuck to the plane and does not move at all. Seeing it, his plane was about to rush through the portal. The flight crew was on the verge of tears. Driving a plane on Earth to outer space is obviously courting death. But even if he stretched out his foot and kicked the glass of the plane hard, it would not help. After all, the windshield on a fighter jet is not so easy to break. The flight attendants themselves know it too. But he can't think of any solution now. This fighter jet was like his tomb, blocking all his thoughts of escape. Finally, when the fighter jet came under the portal, it accelerated and rushed directly through the portal. He finally represented mankind and truly set foot in the universe for the first time. And he also saw, not far from the portal, a huge spaceship, floating quietly in the universe. Then it should be the alien mothership. The flight attendant sighed in his heart. He had given up and ran away. Perhaps, when he began to prepare for the mission of bombing New York with nuclear bombs, he was doomed to his tragic fate. At this moment, something even stranger happened to the pilot once again. The instrument panel in front of him actually showed that the nuclear weapons mounted under the aircraft were automatically launched. In this universe, there is no oxygen. Therefore, the gunpowder at the tail of the missile was not ignited. However, the missile slowly floated towards the huge amounts of Chitauri mothership by virtue of the inertia of the aircraft. Moreover, nuclear missiles have been activated. If it were really a violent artillery attack, the Chitauri mothership would probably be able to easily block it. But that nuclear missile is very small and very slow. Chitauri on the mothership did not find the nuclear missile at all. Finally, the nuclear missile and the mothership lightly touched together. A fierce fire expanded instantly. Boom! The flames completely engulfed the Chitauri mothership in an instant. Nuclear missiles demonstrated their power for the first time in the universe. At the same time, the few remaining Chitauri soldiers on the ground suddenly collapsed on the ground, losing their lives. Their lives are tied to the mothership. If the mothership explodes, they can only be buried with it. And this time, Wesker also received orders from Lin Yu. Without any hesitation, he thrust the mind scepter in his hand directly into the machine behind him. The portal seemed to have lost the support of the Tesseract's power and slowly became smaller. As for Wesker, he held the mind scepter in one hand and the Tesseract in the other. Then, he said to his team, "Line up and return." The 500,000 biochemical army also formed a neat line. As if escorting Wesker's armed team, they surrounded them, slowly, heading towards Raccoon City. But, the first-generation tyrant did not go back with the large army. Instead, he turned in a strange direction and ran wildly into the distance. It seems that he has a new mission. Chapter 71. On board the SHIELD space carrier. The battle is over and Earth has won, but Nick Fury and Hill are not happy. Because, they discovered that Loki's scepter and Tesseract were taken away by the Umbrella Company team. If it were someone else who took it away, Nick Fury would definitely not agree. He would even ask for it right away. If you don't give it, then use force to make the other party understand how powerful you are. But, it was the Umbrella Company that took away those two things. A month ago, Nick Fury would have dared to ask the Umbrella Company to come over. But now, the true strength of the Umbrella Company has been fully revealed in front of him. Not to mention that SHIELD is at its weakest now, even when it is at its strongest, he would not dare to ask Lin Yu for it. And, this war was originally won by the Umbrella Company. It was natural for them to take away the spoils of war. Due to emotions and reasons, Nick Fury could only watch the two babies being taken away by the Umbrella Company. But, what Nick Fury didn't expect was, he didn't dare to ask Lin Yu, but Lin Yu called quickly. Lin Yu, on the other hand, has never liked nonsense. As soon as it comes up, it goes directly to the topic. Director Nick Fury, last time I helped you eradicate the Hydra spies in SHIELD. You seem to have said that if I need your help in any way, you will always respond to my request. Lin Yu's voice came over the phone. Nick Fury was slightly startled by these words. Respond to requests. When can you tell? Nick Fury somewhat forgot whether he said it or not. However, he dare not help Lin Yu. And they did help SHIELD a lot last time. Mr. Lin, please tell me if you have anything to say. I won't refuse if I can help you, Nick Fury said confidently. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu's voice came from the phone again. This is the case. The scientific researchers in my company discovered that this Chitauri's body is very important for us to study some anti-cancer drugs, so, I hope you can help me take a look at those corpses in New York, and don't let others take them away. Hearing this, the corners of Nick Fury's mouth twitched slightly. Fighting cancer. It's obviously a lie. The Chitauri have just arrived on Earth less than 2 hours ago, how could they possibly have discovered anti-cancer drugs from them? But, even if Lin Yu is talking nonsense, Nick Fury does not dare to refute. Immediately afterwards, Lin Yu's voice rang again. Director Nick Fury, this is a major matter related to human life and health around the world. You must take it seriously. No one is allowed to steal any of those corpses. People will be sent to collect them soon, but because there are too many corpses, the transportation may be slow. For the health of people all over the world, you SHIELD must shoulder the responsibility of guarding Chitauri's corpse. Lin Yu spoke with great righteousness and pinned it on Nick Fury's head. Nick Fury could only agree. Okay, I'll just watch it for you. Nick Fury knows that this is not an easy job. There are still many greedy people in this world. During the battle, no one showed up, but when it came time to distribute the spoils, it was estimated that all ghosts and monsters would show up. Doing this kind of thing will definitely offend a lot of people. But Nick Fury didn't want to offend Lin Yu. I could only agree. At the same time, New York military base. General Ross, who had just suffered heavy losses, was sitting in his office dejectedly. After 2 teams of super soldiers were killed by Alice, he was completely desperate. Those are his last trump cards. And the loss of the New York military base cannot be concealed from above. General Ross estimated that he would soon receive an order to be dismissed. But General Ross did not regret his decision. In life, you always have to fight for your goals. Even if you fail, it doesn't matter. For those soldiers who died, the most they could do was to pay some money to their families. Anyway, just be fine. And General Ross has already thought about joining politics when he retires from the army. During his days as the leader of the New York military base, General Ross has accumulated a lot of contacts. When the time comes, it will not be difficult to become a member of parliament or something like that. Moreover, he is not young anymore, and he is already a little unable to carry him in the army. This time he suffered a loss at the hands of the umbrella company, but General Ross figured it out. Otherwise, why don't you take the initiative to propose it before your superiors have dismissed you? General Ross thought to himself. Being dismissed and voluntarily resigning are 2 different concepts. In this way, not only can you keep your reputation, but you can also get the maximum benefit for yourself. If you take the initiative to hand over military power, someone above you will definitely give you great benefits. General Ross gradually narrowed his eyes. He was already thinking about how to get the maximum benefit from this rapid retreat. But at this time, suddenly there was a dong dong sound outside. Immediately afterwards, the ground beneath his feet suddenly shook slightly. An ominous premonition suddenly appeared in General Ross's heart. He stood up quickly and looked out the window. Suddenly, his heart started beating violently. He had already seen that figure covered in bright gray and stronger than the Hulk. Although General Ross was sending troops to deal with the Umbrella Company while Chidori was fighting the Umbrella Company. However, he has also been paying attention to the situation on the battlefield in New York. So, of course he knows this terrifying monster who easily killed dozens of Leviathan beasts. At the same time, he also knew that this monster must be something developed by the Umbrella Company. But he didn't expect that this monster would actually come to the New York military base. What does it want? General Ross muttered. He couldn't believe that Umbrella Company dared to be so bold. Although I have attacked him several times, this is a military base after all. If you dare to make trouble here, you are directly opposing the entire United States. So arrogant, too arrogant. At this moment, General Ross's office door was also pushed open by panicked soldiers. General Ross's men had forgotten to knock on the door and barged in. After coming in, he hurriedly reported to General Ross, "General, unfortunately, a monster has come to our base." General Ross's face was so gloomy that he could almost squeeze out water. Such a loud sound, you don't even have to use your hands to report it, you just heard it yourself. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and organize an attack. Take it down, General Ross roared angrily. The soldier hurriedly saluted and took the order and left. Although General Ross gave the order to attack, he knew that the power in his hands would definitely not be able to deal with the monster. Letting his men attack him is just to attract his attention. General Ross's eyes flashed. Where there is life, there is hope. But just when General Ross was about to run away, he suddenly heard a buzzing sound like a roaring wind coming from above his head. General Ross raised his head in horror. Look at the roof of your office. Then he saw a crack suddenly appear on the roof. Immediately afterwards, it's like being able to see slow motion before dying. The crack gradually expanded, and the entire roof was shattered. A pair of dirty big feet fell from the sky. What General Ross didn't know was that, with the presence of the Red Queen, Lin Yu is very aware of all his little moves. Lin Yu knew clearly where his office was located in the New York military base, and even where he was in the office now. And Lin Yu is always decisive when doing things and will never give the enemy any room to breathe. Especially a guy like General Ross, who is bound to retaliate and has certain abilities. Although he has little personal strength, he is the leader of a military region after all, and can still cause some trouble for Lin Yu. So, Lin Yu controlled the tyrant, jumped directly from a few hundred meters away, and crushed the roof of General Ross's office with one kick. One kick. He directly trampled General Ross into a meat pie. Outside General Ross's office, the soldier who had just received the order from General Ross and walked out of his office suddenly heard a loud noise behind him. 190. This office is torn apart. Then, he saw a monster, a Chinese medicine doctor standing quietly in General Ross's office. And under its feet, there was minced meat. You can only vaguely see a camouflage uniform dyed bright red with blood and minced meat. General Ross died. No resistance at all. The soldier was so frightened that he rolled and crawled and ran away. He had forgotten General Ross's order. After all, General Ross is no longer here. There is no need to risk being trampled to death to fight against such a terrifying monster. The abomination didn't massacre an entire New York military base. After all, Lin Yu is not an executioner, and he has no interest in killing ordinary soldiers. If you kill a General Ross, you can still suppress him through the influence of the Umbrella Company. It would be difficult to deal with if an entire military base was massacred. Subsequently, after trampling General Ross to death, his figure quickly started running again. He quickly disappeared from the sight of the New York Military District soldiers. And at the moment, Umbrella Corporation's Hive underground base in Raccoon City, Lin Yu had no psychological fluctuations at all regarding the death of General Ross. This guy should have died long ago. It's just that Lin Yu has never found a good reason. This time, he dared to plot against the Umbrella Company again, so Lin Yu had no choice but to send him on his way. But Lin Li didn't pay too much attention to General Ross's affairs. Because his biochemical army and the Biochemical Emergency Response Force led by Wesker have also returned. Soon, Wesker brought the Tesseract and the Psychic Scepter to Lin Yu's office. After entering the door, Wesker was slightly surprised when he saw the image of Alice. Alice usually looks weak, but today's outfit looks completely different from before. But Wesker didn't dare to look any further. After all, everyone in the entire Hive underground base knew that Alice was the woman of the big boss Lin Yu. Although no one knew whether the two of them had actually taken any action, no one dared to be disrespectful to Alice. However, Wesker did have some sense of justice in his heart. Lin Yu also saw Wesker's doubts, smiled, and said, "Alice has been injected with our newly developed T-virus. Now, even if there are 10 of you, she is definitely no match for Alice." Wesker is not an outsider. Lin Yu directly told Wesker about the T-virus. Hearing the boss's words, Wesker was even more shocked. "Boss, is the T-virus so powerful?" Wesker asked weakly. As the commander of the Umbrella Company's armed forces, he is a very violent guy. If there were no tasks, the time spent in the training room would take up almost 80% of his total free time. If it were placed in ancient China, he would be a pure martial arts idiot. Lin Yu smiled and nodded again, and said, "Look back, try fighting with Alice." For those who didn't know, I thought Lin Yu was joking. But Alice, who understands Lin Yu best, has already seen what her boss is thinking. This intention is too obvious. If he and Jen tried to compete with Wesker, he would definitely go crazy. Alice also knows Wesker's character quite well. When the time comes, he will definitely beg his boss to let him be injected with the T-virus. Really, just hearing these words from Lin Yu made Wesker a little excited. "Okay, boss." Wesker's eyes were already shining slightly. At this moment, he also raised the Tesseract and the Psychic Scepter in front of Lin Yu and said, "Boss, what should I do with these two things?" Looking at the scepter and Tesseract in Wesker's hands, Lin Yu suddenly felt a little dizzy. Of these two, one is Space Gem and the other is Mind Gem. The top treasures in the Marvel world, 2 of the 6 infinite gems. Lin Yu just wanted to keep it for himself at the time, and never thought about what to do with it after he got it back. In this case, let's leave it alone for now. Anyway, it's better to have it in your own hands than in someone else's hands. And, as long as Thanos can't get enough 6 infinite gems, he doesn't have to worry about the half chance of death. Looking at the two things in Wesker's hand again, Lin Yu ordered, "Put them away. Go back and prepare a separate room to put all the treasures collected in the future." Lin Yu suddenly thought of Odin's treasure house. How about setting up a warehouse dedicated to storing treasures? "Alice, go and deal with this matter, but you must be tight defensive and don't lose anything," Lin Yu ordered to Alice. Afterwards, Alice took the Tesseract and the Psychic Scepter from Wesker's hands, turned and left. And in the room, only Lin Yu and Wesker were left again. Lin Yu looked at the picture of New York on the big screen and said, "Next, your task is heavier." Although the war is over, one of Lin Yu's ultimate goals has not yet been completed. Now, there are countless Chidori corpses in New York. What Wesker has to do is to take the people from the Umbrella Company and transport all those Chidori warriors, Chidori flight machines, and those huge Leviathan beasts. It seems like just a transportation job, but in fact it is not easy. After all, there were too many corpses, and the Leviathan beast was too huge. Lickers and predators cannot be allowed to do these things. The first generation of tyrants can be considered. But it's just one, and it doesn't mean much. This work cannot be completed in 1 or 2 days. A few minutes later, the Umbrella Company's Biochemical Emergency Response Force, which had just returned to the company, was dispatched again. At the same time, all vehicles and helicopters were dispatched. A large-scale transportation operation began. At the same time, Lin Yu was not idle either. In order to transport everything back smoothly, Lin Yu had to take action himself. The Umbrella Company is not just about powerful force. There is also endless money and huge connections. If problems can be solved with money, there is no need to use force. After all, what an Umbrella Company lacks most is money. Lin Yu picked up the phone and gently dialed a phone number. When the call was connected, Lin Yu smiled slightly and said, "Hello, Mr. Vice President. There are still many forces and organizations that want these alien corpses in New York City. Although aliens have come to Earth before. For example, the Kree, the Skrulls, and even Thor, the Prince of Asgard, but these aliens are relatively secretive, and ordinary people don't even know about them. Plus, they're not corpses either. So, this time, Chidori's arrival is different. They are huge in number and possess very advanced technological means. If the bodies of Chidori, or their flight machines and weapons, etc. can be obtained for research, it will definitely make the technological level of these forces advance by leaps and bounds." Chidori's corpses and remains were a gold mine. The war had just ended, and Wesker had just sent the Psychic Scepter and Tesseract to the Umbrella Company base, and several groups and forces had already arrived in New York. But, all were stopped by people from S.H.I.E.L.D. The huge space carrier no longer became invisible, but flew directly to low altitude. Nick Fury stood on the space carrier, looking at the guys who had just arrived below with a cold face. Nick Fury didn't want to try so hard. But, looking at these people, there was no movement at all when fighting Chidori, but they immediately came out to get benefits as soon as the battle ended. Nick Fury felt a little angry. He would rather give all these things to Lin Yu than let these little guys take away the body. Today, no one can touch these corpses. Anyone who does so will be an enemy of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury looked coldly at the representatives of each force below with one eye. But, not everyone will give S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is just a relatively strong official organization. He doesn't have much power. Below, a guy wearing camouflage uniforms with an eagle pattern on his shoulders took a step forward and said, "Director Nick Fury, do you want to swallow all these corpses? S.H.I.E.L.D.'s appetite is inevitably too big. This guy is a colonel." Nick Fury has some impressions of him. He is from the Eastern Military District next to New York. The Eastern Military District of the United States is a larger military base than the New York Military District. However, the military and S.H.I.E.L.D. are two departments with completely different systems, and no one can control the other. Hearing these words, Nick Fury was even more unhappy. His temper also rose, and he said coldly, "Whether S.H.I.E.L.D. wants it or not, you are not qualified to take anything here." Immediately afterwards, Nick Fury said to Hill, who was standing behind him, "If anyone dares to touch any of these Chidori things, just open fire. I will see who dares to touch it." Quote, Nick Fury's words were obviously meant for the following people. But, But we don't dare to try whether what Nick Fury said is true or false. After all, several rows of gun barrels have been exposed underneath the huge space carrier. Unless the Eastern Military Region sends fighter jets and tanks, there is really nothing the space carrier can do. Fighters and tanks are not easy to use. And this is in the heart of New York City. Although New York was almost completely destroyed by the Chitauri, it was one of the largest cities in the United States after all, and only a crazy guy like General Ross dared to send troops to New York. At this moment, other organizations and forces also stepped forward to persuade Nick Fury. People from the military alone accounted for more than half. There are also various scientific research laboratories and so on. Moreover, these laboratories all have great backgrounds, and each of them is not a good one. Although Nick Fury looks strong, he is also under a lot of pressure now. But Lin Yu agreed to help him guard these Chitauri bodies, but he had no choice but to resist. But at this moment, a large black spot suddenly appeared in the sky, accompanied by a rumbling sound, flying from the direction of Raccoon City. A few minutes later, Wesker took the Umbrella Company's biochemical emergency response team to the side of the SHIELD spacecraft carrier. Wesker saw the current situation on the field at a glance. Compared with Nick Fury, Wesker seems much more casual. He is not afraid of anything. It doesn't matter what military region or research laboratory he has, whatever background he has is not as good as his own background. What's going on? What are you people doing here? Disperse quickly and go back to each house to find your mother. Wesker said in a bad tone. Wesker spoke with a ruthless air, which immediately made everyone present look pale. But behind Wesker, nearly 1,000 armed members of the Umbrella Company were all neatly arranged in formation. Every one of them was armed. After hearing what their captain said, everyone raised their weapons. Suddenly, the scene became tense. Several United States soldiers also put their hands on the handles of their guns. However, they did not dare to actually take out their guns. After all, the name of the Umbrella Company is not good enough for them. In the entire United States, the only one who dares to have its own independent armed forces and do things with arrogance is the Umbrella Company. At this moment of tense confrontation, the colonel just now suddenly received a phone call. The call came from the general in his military region. There was no nonsense. As soon as the connection was connected, the general said, "Withdraw it and don't get involved in the Umbrella Company's affairs." The colonel obviously didn't quite understand that the Umbrella Company couldn't just swallow so many corpses. "General," but the colonel was about to ask why but was interrupted. "I just received the news that General Ross was trampled into a meat pie by a biochemical monster in his office in the military region." Upon hearing this, the colonel's eyes widened instantly, and a sense of fear arose in his heart. A general, and a powerful general at that, was trampled to death by a monster in his own military area. Without even thinking about it, the strange thing my boss mentioned must be from the Umbrella Company. Has the Umbrella Company become so arrogant? The colonel held up the phone, looked at the team in front of him again, which was more neatly lined up and had more advanced weapons and equipment than the soldiers in the military, and hung up the phone silently. "Let's retreat." The colonel waved to his 2 men and left in a hurry. If it was SHIELD who wanted to eat these alien corpses, they could really think of a way. But as for the Umbrella Company, forget it. If a general can be killed in his own military district office, then who dares to fight against the Umbrella Company? And the scariest thing is, the Umbrella Company did such a thing, but the Hexagon didn't react at all. What a brilliant method. After the colonel left. Immediately afterwards, almost everyone present quickly received a call from their headquarters. Everyone in the military learned about the tragic situation of General Ross in a short period of time. And those in the laboratory were also called back. The forces and capital behind them were warned by the top management of the United States not to kill those Chitauri corpses. After a few minutes, everyone at the scene left. And at the moment, Wesker sneered and ordered his men to start working. Wesker, on the other hand, smiled slightly at Nick Fury and said, "Director Nick Fury, our boss said that he would like to use your space carrier to help transport some things. The removal of countless Chitauri bodies in New York City has finally begun." After Lin Yu used some connections, no one dared to bother him anymore. Nick Fury, on the other hand, could only reluctantly participate in the transportation. Moreover, he still uses his space carrier. Although it is a bit overkill, it is really useful. The deck of the space carrier is completely cleared and used as a transport ship, capable of transporting one Leviathan beast at a time. And if we use other methods, there is really no way to transport these behemoths. At the moment, in the Umbrella Corporation Raccoon City headquarters building, Lin Yu sat quietly in the office on the top floor of the headquarters building, watching the news reports on the screen in front of him. After this war, almost half of the buildings in New York City were destroyed, and more than 1 million people died. What a disaster. But, in terms of news, because the American news system is controlled by powerful consortiums and organizations, they don't like to report bad things. After all, if it causes social unrest, then these financial groups will lose a lot of profits. The so-called consortium, the largest in the entire United States, is the Umbrella Company. Although Lin Yu is only one person, all the financial groups are not as rich as him. There are countless media controlled by umbrella companies, and they are all mainstream media. In the news picture, a pretty female anchor was holding a microphone and explaining the current situation in New York. Viewers, although this alien invasion has brought many disasters to the Earth, it also proves the power of our Earth, especially the biochemical technology of the Umbrella Company. In the battle with those aliens, it has no power at all. Don't be left behind. The reconstruction work in New York City is also in full swing. With the efforts and help of the Umbrella Company, I believe New York City will soon return to its former prosperity. Next, let's interview an Umbrella Company employee who participated in the reconstruction work in New York and hear his thoughts. Soon, the camera focused on a guy who was directing a group of people to carry Chidori's body. Lin Yu was immediately happy when he saw it. Isn't this Wesker? Sir, are you an employee of the Umbrella Company? The anchor handed the microphone to Wesker. Wesker's expression was calm, as if he had already prepared his words. I'm the head of security for Umbrella. The female anchor asked again. Excuse me, what do you think about the Umbrella Company dispatching so many people and materials to help New York rebuild this time? Hearing this, Wesker finally showed a smile on his cold face. He slowly said, Our Umbrella Company is a large enterprise with a sense of social responsibility. We not only develop and manufacture various drugs for people to ensure everyone's health, but we also actively contribute to the society in other aspects. Our boss, he doesn't like making money. The mantra he often talks about is, the company's money comes from society, and it must be used in society. Sitting in front of the TV screen, Lin Yu looked confused. He didn't know yet that Wesker actually had the ability to perform. What he said was so clear that he almost believed his lies. How could he send people to help rebuild New York? They were just carrying the bodies of Chidori soldiers. At this moment, Lin Yu's office door was knocked. Alice walked in from the door. Behind her, there was a middle-aged man in his 50s. The middle-aged man seemed a little cautious after meeting Lin Yu. He hurriedly stretched out his hand and took 2 steps forward. Lin Yu also smiled, and the two held hands together. Mr. Lin is really getting younger and younger, the middle-aged man said in greeting. However, he did feel that Lin Si looked much younger. Although he has become bald, he looks completely different from his previous sickly appearance. Your Excellency, Vice President, you look good lately. Lin Yu laughed and said. Lin Yu is naturally quite familiar with the person in front of him. In the memory of my body, this guy was originally supported by the Umbrella Company. Moreover, all the funds for the Vice President's activities are provided by the Umbrella Company. It can be said that the Umbrella Company is the master behind him. And Lin Yu, in the movie of his previous life, had also seen this guy. He is the Vice President who plotted with Killian in Iron Man 3. After the two exchanged casual greetings, Lin Yu finally picked up a bank card from the table next to him and said to the Vice President, This is my little thought and is not included in the activity funds. Seeing the card in Lin Yu's hand and hearing Lin Yu say this, the Vice President's eyes suddenly lit up. He is not afraid that Lin Yu will give him benefits. After all, they have been bound together for a long time. As for the card, the Vice President hurriedly thanked him. Thank you, Mr. Lin, then I'm welcome. Without any hesitation, he put the card directly into his shirt pocket. Lin Yu is also very happy. This small amount of money is completely ignored by the Umbrella Company. However, spending this small amount of money makes many things more convenient. Not long after chatting, Lin Yu began to see off the guests. Lin Yu really has no interest in this kind of small talk. After all, the vice president is a bit tired of hearing nothing but flattery. But, when Lin Yu stood up and walked the vice president to the door, Lin Yu suddenly said, "By the way, Vice President, your daughter's legs seem to have some problems, right?" Lin Yu remembered that in the Iron Man movie in his previous life, the vice president cooperated with Killian because he wanted to cure his daughter's leg. Hearing Lin Yu's words, the vice president was stunned for a moment, then nodded. He didn't expect that the boss of the umbrella company, who had so many things to do, would actually care about his daughter's legs. It was brought out from the mother's womb, and there is no way to cure it, the vice president sighed. His daughter's legs were the most sad thing for him. But, at this time, Lin Yu suddenly smiled. Then he said, "Bring your daughter over later. I'll have her checked out. With some effort, she should be cured." The vice president got into his own car and left the umbrella company headquarters building. But, as soon as he got in the car, the calmness on his face disappeared. A look of excitement suddenly appeared on his face. "Can my daughter's legs dug out really be cured?" "No, it can definitely be cured. The boss of the umbrella company definitely cannot lie to himself. Because he won't refuse anything he wants." The vehicle started slowly, heading towards New York City. He came here mainly to express condolences to the New York citizens on behalf of the United States government. Coming to the umbrella company is just a drop in. Unexpectedly, the harvest was so great. But, at this moment, the vice president's secretary, who was sitting in the passenger seat, suddenly answered a phone call. After saying a few words, he hung up the phone. Then, the secretary turned back and said to the vice president, "Mr. Vice President, there is a man named Killian who wants to meet with you through the introduction of Congressman Luke." Killian. The vice president frowned slightly. He seemed to have never heard of the name Killian. The transportation of Chidori's body lasted for 3 full days and finally came to an end. And Wesker and his team members finally returned to the umbrella company's Hive underground base after 3 days of busy work. Countless corpses were transported to the newly expanded cloning laboratory. The expansion of the cloning laboratory naturally also added a considerable warehouse. And this time, Chidori's corpse happened to fill up all of Kokura's expanded frozen warehouse. Dr. Isaac, the head of the cloning laboratory, was extremely excited. Through analysis and research, they have determined that these Chidori corpses can be used for the cultivation of biochemical species. Even more useful than human corpses. Dr. Isaac predicts that these Chidori corpses will allow the umbrella company to have no shortage of cloning raw materials for a long time to come. But, when he saw Lin Yu summoning a guy that was 4 or 5 meters tall, he suddenly stopped. If this thing is cloned, these raw materials will probably not be used for a long time. After all, this size is dozens of times that of ordinary hunters. But, immediately afterwards, Dr. Isaac became excited again. He got close to the body of the first-generation tyrant and gently stroked his skin with his hands, his eyes shining. He discovered the new world again. And at the same time, Chidori's flight machines and weapons were all sent to the Weapons Research and Development Laboratory in the Hive underground base. Abigail also became busy again. By studying these alien technologies, she was able to once again improve the original steel battle suit. And, Lin Yu has also assigned her a new task. That is, to develop a steel battle suit for the first generation of tyrants. The body of the first-generation tyrant was really too heavy, and it was indeed not easy to put on a steel battle suit and fly. But fortunately, Chidori's technology makes up for many of the shortcomings of the original battle suit. Made this possible, except for these 2 laboratories. The busiest thing turned out to be the virus laboratory. Alexia made an unprecedented request to add an assistant to herself. Obviously, after obtaining Chidori's genes, she also helped a lot in the development and improvement of the T-virus. And, according to Alexia, it seems that based on the T-virus, a new version of the virus will appear soon. And this new virus seems to have a much greater chance of success than the T-virus. Yin Bao is looking forward to this. Because of the existing T-virus, he didn't dare let anyone get injected. Alice can only be regarded as an exception. After all, in the entire Resident Evil series of movies, only Alice successfully injected herself with the T-virus. Although many others have successfully integrated viruses, they are not T-viruses. Although the T-virus is the most basic virus, its growth potential is unmatched by any other virus. In previous life movies, Alice also became more powerful as she progressed to the later stages. As for the assistant Alexia requested, Lin Yu actually already had a candidate in mind. One day later, after resting for a day, Wesker Pia finally found Lin Yu impatiently. He wanted to compete with Alice. Soon, Lin Yu, Alice and Wesker came to the training ground. Lin Yu stood on the edge of the training ground with his arms folded and a smile on his face. Wesker and Alice stood in the center of the training ground. Wesker had a slight look of excitement on his face. He smiled softly and said, "I won't hold back for a while. Alice, you have to be careful." These few days, his boss's words have been echoing in his mind. If he hadn't been conducting in New York, he would have come back and tried it with Alice. He naturally believed Lin Yu's words. However, he still found it a bit incredible that a girl who looked so weak suddenly had strength 10 times stronger than himself. Only actual combat can convince him. After hearing Wesker's words, Alice also smiled and replied, "You just need to use your full strength. I will try my best to hold back my strength so as not to hurt you." Alice was telling the truth. In the past 2 days, she had been working hard to adapt to her growing body. However, in actual combat, it is indeed more difficult to contain one's strength. She could only try her best. At this moment, Wesker suddenly moved. As the leader of the Umbrella Company's armed forces and a martial arts idiot, he naturally moves very quickly. A fist shot out of the air in an instant, like a dragon coming out of its cave, extremely fast. Wesker's strength allows him to fight even against 10 or 8 elite soldiers. "Alice, watch the punch," Wesker yelled. He didn't forget to remind Alice. But, when his fist was still 10 centimeters away from Alice, Alice suddenly moved. Her figure quickly turned into a black line. Suddenly disappeared in front of Wesker. Suddenly, Wesker's expression changed drastically. Immediately afterwards, he suddenly felt an extremely violent impact coming from his back. Boom! Wesker fell directly to the ground and fell like a dog. Alice, on the other hand, stood quietly behind Wesker and looked at Lin Yu with an innocent look. In the training ground, a loud roar suddenly sounded. "Boss, I also want to be injected with the T-virus." Shield, in front of the ruins of the ground headquarters building. Nick Fury and the Avengers are saying goodbye to Thor. Thor held his Mjolnir in one hand and the chained Loki in the other. But, there was something wrong with Thor's expression. At this moment, Thor said weakly again, "Director Nick Fury, with your relationship with the Umbrella Company, is it true that you can't get the Tesseract and the Psychic Scepter back?" This was the 3rd time Thor asked this question. And Nick Fury, the response is the same every time. He smiled bitterly, shook his head, and said, "My relationship with them is really not good." Thor clearly didn't believe it. You used your beloved space carrier to help them transport Chidori's body, and you still can't say. Thor said weakly. Nick Fury also replied weakly, "I was forced to have no choice." Thor obviously refused to give up and persuaded, "It is too unsafe to have 2 infinite gems in the same place at the same time. It is the best choice for me to take one away. If you don't want the Earth to be destroyed because of this, then think of a way to get one of them back from the Umbrella Company. Tony, what do you think?" Thor turned to look at Tony Stark. But, Tony shook his head hastily and said, "I'm not going. Lin Yu, the boss of the Umbrella Company, is the 2nd largest shareholder of our company. I still need his support." Thor looked at Barton again. Barton also waved his hand hurriedly, took 2 steps back, and said, "Don't look at me, you can't let me use a bow and arrow to deal with hundreds of thousands of biochemical armies." Thor looked at Natasha Romanoff again. Natasha Romanoff asked him back, "Why don't you go yourself?" Before Thor could look at Steve, Steve took the initiative and said, "I don't dare to go, they almost drained all my blood last time." Asterisk 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 asterisk. "Hit me too," Barton responded. After hearing the conversation between the two, Thor hurriedly looked at his arm. "Fortunately, I recovered relatively quickly and the pinholes have long since disappeared." At this moment, Thor finally looked at Bruce Banner. It seems that, except for Natasha Romanoff, Banner's blood has not been drawn, right? And it seems Banner has nothing to do with Umbrella. How about you try? Maybe you can exchange the Tesseract back with a tube of blood," Thor said to Bruce Banner. But just as Thor finished speaking, in the sky, suddenly there was a roar of helicopter propellers. Immediately afterwards, an armed team wearing Umbrella Company logo combat uniforms descended from the helicopter. Wesker walked towards Bruce Banner with a smile on his face, ignoring everyone else. Then, slowly said, "Dr. Banner, our boss would like to invite you to come and sit down for a while." Bruce Banner was slightly startled. "How can I say that Cao Cao is about to arrive?" he asked weakly. "Could it be that your boss is looking for me to draw my blood?" These words made Wesker's face change slightly. Then, slightly embarrassed, he said, "Actually, you can smoke on the spot." Before Wesker finished speaking, a team member behind him handed a suitcase in front of him. Suddenly, the scene was extremely awkward. Bruce Banner is an honest man. In other words, among this group of Avengers, he should be regarded as the oldest and best guy. Seeing that the other party was actually preparing to draw his blood, many thoughts flashed through Bruce Banner's mind. As a scientist, I don't have much objection to drawing a tube of blood. What's more, he often draws his own blood. Only, Banner is afraid that General Ross will get his blood. That madman, if he gets his own blood, will definitely create many monsters like Hulk. Dr. Banner scratched his head and said, "It's okay to draw a tube of blood. Don't give the blood to General Ross in the New York military district. That man is a madman and has always wanted to study how to create more Hulk." Upon hearing this, Wesker hurriedly said, "Don't worry, General Ross is dead." Dead? Dr. Banner was slightly stunned. A powerful general in the New York military district died. And at the moment, Nick Fury also nodded slightly to Dr. Banner and said slowly, "The Battle of New York just ended." He was in his office and was stepped on by a monster. That monster was on the battlefield. The one who killed countless Leviathan beasts. After all, Nick Fury is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He still knows about such big things. And his words are also very interesting. The name of the Umbrella Company does not appear in Nick Fury's entire sentence. It seems that he is slightly taboo in front of people from the Umbrella Company. But everyone present was smart, and naturally they all knew the reason for General Ross's death in this sentence. Suddenly, except for Thor and Loki, everyone was a little surprised. After all, they have all heard the name of General Ross. That guy is not a good person. Unexpectedly, he was killed by the Umbrella Company. The Umbrella Company has indeed become lawless. And at the moment, after hearing Nick Fury's explanation, Dr. Banner suddenly let out a long breath. General Ross is dead, which is good news for him. Although he was the father of his ex-girlfriend, Dr. Banner was still secretly happy about the death of General Ross. Banner, a good old man, was the only one who could make him hate him so much. General Ross. At this moment, Dr. Banner directly rolled up his sleeves and said, "Then smoke." But, Suo Shung reminded, "Banner, don't forget what we just said. Thor doesn't know who General Ross is. What he is most concerned about now is the Tesseract and the Psychic Scepter." Dr. Banner is certainly not stupid and knows what Thor is talking about. At this moment, seeing Wesker holding a needle and about to insert it into his arm, he suddenly asked weakly, "Well, do you think I can use this tube of blood to exchange it with your boss for a Tesseract?" When Wesker heard this, his hand movements stopped immediately. He raised his head, frowned slightly, looked at Dr. Banner with a silly smile on his face and said, "How about you ask our boss yourself?" In an instant, Dr. Nay's head shook like a rattle. "Just kidding, even if I took the courage of a leopard, I wouldn't dare go to the big boss of the Umbrella Company to ask for it. A biochemical army of hundreds of thousands is no joke." Dr. Banner still remembers that not long ago, when he transformed into Hulk and fought against the Abomination, he saw those terrifying biochemical monsters for the first time and was scared away. Even Hulk didn't dare to provoke those monsters, and he didn't even have the courage. And, when Banner transformed into Hulk, although he couldn't control his body, he could still see things outside. So, he had seen those terrifying monsters with his own eyes. Especially those who were equally powerful or even stronger than him were torn to pieces by those disgusting monsters. You dare to ask the boss of the umbrella company for something, you are a monster. Forget it, you'd better draw blood quickly. Banner hurriedly moved his arm forward. Wesker did not hesitate and directly inserted the syringe in Dr. Banner's arm. Thor didn't dare to speak. The strength of the umbrella company has already made him, the Prince of Asgard, feel a little scared. Now, he just wants to return to Asgard quickly. If you don't get the Tesseract, then you don't get it. It's business to send back Loki, the troublemaker. Thor looked up at the sky and silently recited Heimdall's name in his heart. Suddenly, a colorful beam of light fell from the sky. And the figures of Thor and Loki also disappeared with this colorful light. Soon, Bruce Banner's genes were sent to Lin Yu. But, this time, something unexpected happened. The system's genetic description of Dr. Banner is somewhat different from the past. Gene name, Hulk gene. Gene strength, 4 stars. Available experience points, 110 points. Gene contains ability ranking. Strength 100, agility 80, defense 50, attack 50% special potential. Note: since the host has absorbed the Abomination gene, and the Abomination gene is 70% similar to the Hulk's gene, only about 30% of the actual experience value can be obtained. The same gene cannot provide experience points for the biochemical technology tree for the second time. Quote: behind Dr. Banner's introduction to genes, there are 2 lines of small print remarks. The remarks make it very clear that each gene can only provide experience points once. The gene of hatred originally came from the Hulk's gene, so it can only provide a small part of the experience value this time. But 100 points is not too little for Lin Yu. Lin Yu's hand suddenly flashed with light. The Hulk's genes were absorbed into the biotech tree. And at the moment, the number of experience points in the backbone of Lin Yu's biochemical technology tree has reached 3,120 points. But, with the increase of 100 experience points, Lin Yu's own strength has not changed much. The first-generation tyrant in the biological cultivation tank in his mind has not changed significantly. The 3 biochemical monsters he obtained from the biochemical technology tree are each more powerful than the last. But it's not absolute, because each of the 3 of them has its own characteristics. Predators are all about speed and sharpness. The first generation of tyrants represented absolute power. But, just in terms of size, the tyrant is more impactful. Lin Yu was already looking forward to what a shocking scene it would be if tens of thousands of tyrants appeared at the same time. After absorbing the Hulk's genes, Lin Yu whispered to the Red Queen, "Red Queen, call Ellie over." With the Red Queen around, Lin Yu just needs to arrange a casual sentence, and the Red Queen can convey the order to anyone's ears. In less than half a minute, Alice appeared in Lin Yu's office. Lin Yu looked at the Alice in front of him, who had undergone tremendous changes from the previous few days, and said with a smile, "Alice, there is a task for you to do." "Okay, boss." Before even asking about the task, Alice hurriedly agreed happily. After being injected with the T-virus, her personality has also changed slightly. Now, she is looking forward to going out to perform tasks all day long. And, the way he was dressed had completely changed from before. Alice now looks like a female warrior. If you don't look at the appearance, there is almost no difference from the look of Black Widow. "Red Queen, investigate where Maya Hansen is now," Lin Yu ordered to the Red Queen. Immediately afterwards, the big screen in Lin Yu's office automatically lit up. A map appeared on the big screen. On the map, a red dot is clearly marked. Next to the map, the appearance of a woman also appeared. That person was Maya Hansen in the Iron Man 3 movie that Lin Yu had watched in her previous life. Lin Yu looked at the familiar face on the screen, smiled slightly and said to Alice, "I found an assistant for Alexia, go and bring her back. However, be careful, some of her friends may not be easy to get along with. Take a team of Frost Hunters. The power of Frost on them should have a very good effect." Lin Yu did not let the tyrant take action. Instead, he chose Frost Hunter. Because, Lin Yu knew that Maya Hansen's friends seemed to like playing with fire. Between those who play with fire and those who play with ice, who is more powerful? Soon, 2 transport helicopters took off from one of the Umbrella Company's bases. They flew towards a small town in western New York. The map location shown by the Red Queen just now is in that small town. Lin Yu vaguely remembered that Killian and Maya Hansen's laboratory was in a warehouse in a small town. It is estimated that their current extremis is almost successful. But definitely not in perfect form yet. Otherwise, the system should have reminded itself to collect the genes of those who integrated extremis. Definitely, it may be that my biochemical technology tree system is becoming more and more demanding. I always reminded myself before that mosquito legs are also meat. But now, even the Hulk's genes are only given 100 points, and apart from reminding himself the first time, he has never been reminded again. Obviously, as the biochemical technology tree continues to be upgraded, its requirements are becoming higher and higher. Alice has already set off with several armed members and a team of frost hunters. Lin Yu called Wesker over again. Lin Yu has another task to give to Wesker. But as soon as he entered the door, Lin Yu felt that something was wrong with Wesker's expression. "What's going on with you?" Lin Yu asked doubtfully. Hearing the boss ask himself, Wesker pulled a face and said, "Boss, when can I be injected with the T-virus?" Wesker couldn't wait. After fighting Alice, he had requested Lin Yu many times. Even if Lin Yu said that the current T-virus was not perfect yet and had only a 30% chance of success, Wesker didn't care at all. "I still beg to be injected with the T-virus all the time. Even if you don't succeed, it doesn't matter if you die." Lin Yu was completely speechless about this. Finally, after Wesker's request, Lin Yu's face turned cold. "Just stop thinking about it. Until Alexia perfects the T-virus, you will never be allowed to be injected with the T-virus. Don't make noises all day long." Lin Yu's expression turned cold, and Wesker immediately became frightened. A sneer appeared on his face, and he said, "Boss, don't be angry, why don't I stop asking?" But Lin Yu also relented immediately. For Wesker, a guy who is loyal to the end, he has no good solution. It won't be long before there will be new progress in T-virus research. "Are you waiting?" Lin Yu said helplessly. Wesker's face suddenly became excited again. He saluted and said, "Okay, Ban. Since the boss said it wouldn't take long, it must be very soon." Wesker still believed Lin Yu's words. And what Lin Yu said was not a lie. When communicating with Alexia before, she said that by studying Chidori's genes, there may be new progress in the research of T-virus. And even if there is no progress, when Maya Hansen comes, it will definitely help her research. Maya Hansen, in the entire Marvel world, should be regarded as the top biologist. The extremis she studied will definitely help the success rate of the T-virus. By then, the success rate will be high, and it won't be too late to let Wesker inject again. Lin Yu doesn't want to lose Wesker, a loyal and capable subordinate. At this moment, Lin Yu said to Wesker again, "There is a task for you. Go and bring back a doctor of astronomy named Eric. Don't hurt him. I have something to ask him." Hearing that there was a mission, Wesker's expression became serious again. He hurriedly took the order and left. When it comes to tasks, he never shows any carelessness. As for why we brought Dr. Eric back, Lin Yu actually started thinking about a problem a long time ago. If your own umbrella company develops on Earth, there will be many constraints. Those biochemical armies, now 4 to 5 million, already look so terrifying in size. If it reaches millions, wouldn't the scale be even bigger? Only on Earth, I can't use my hands and feet. And now, I got the Tesseract again. If we don't make good use of it, wouldn't it be a waste of such a good resource? And if you want to stimulate the power of Tesseract, Dr. Eric is a good candidate. When he built that machine, although it was controlled by Loki with a mind scepter, he also had memories. In other words, he should be able to recreate that machine. If it succeeds, the umbrella company can pass through the portal and make plans on other planets in advance. This is a big game. However, it is also a step that Umbrella must go through if it wants to achieve greater development. Half an hour later, in a small town in New York City. This small town is not large, with less than 2,000 people. And on the edge of this town, there is a warehouse. Inside the warehouse, Killian and Maya Hansen are testing their latest research, Extremis. In order to make Extremis more perfect, they have done a lot of human experiments. These people who have not yet completed the Extremis injection are people with physical disabilities. Because, by injecting Extremis, their bodies can return to normal. Even if the arms and legs are broken, the broken limb can be reborn. That's why they volunteered to participate in this experiment. Only, the current extremis is not perfect. His success rate is not even as good as the T-virus developed by Alexia. The success rate is very low. But as more and more people participate in this experiment, there are still many people who have succeeded. These people have all become Killian's subordinates. After all, although they succeeded, they still needed constant injections to maintain their lives. Moreover, with more and more human experiments, extremis has become more and more stable through continuous research. At the moment, in this seemingly crude laboratory, they were injecting extremis into a new volunteer. In the beginning, Maya Hansen was actually very resistant to human experiments. But, as her research deepens, extremis's power becomes more and more tempting to her, coupled with the encouragement of Killian, a guy who looks charming on the surface but is extremely sinister and evil in his heart. Maya Hansen finally embarked on the path of human experimentation. Until now, Maya Hansen has been unable to attack. Even, Maya Hansen already vaguely knew that Killian was selling the unfinished extremis to those terrorists. But she didn't dare to say anything to Killian. I can only pretend not to know. And at the moment, while the two were concentrating on the experiment, outside the laboratory, there was a sudden knock on the door. Killian frowned. Under normal circumstances, his men would not disturb his and Maya Hansen's experimental process at this time unless there was something special. Killian said doubtfully, "Come in." At this time, his top thug, Severn, opened the door of the laboratory and said, "Boss, there is a woman outside who wants to find Dr. Maya Hansen." "A woman? Who is it?" Killian asked coldly. Severn shook his head and said he didn't know. Killian's face became a little ugly. His subordinates were really not very sensible. For those who don't know, just leave. He doesn't want Maya Hansen to come into contact with too many people. Killian has already used Maya Hansen as a tool to create extremis only for himself. However, he couldn't face Maya Hansen face to face. After all, extremis research still needs this woman. At this time, after hearing Severn's words, Maya Hansen put down the experimental tools in her hands, and then said, "Looking for me? Then I'll go take a look." But, just when Maya Hansen was getting ready to go out, outside the door, behind Killian's subordinate Severn, a woman's voice suddenly came. "No need to come out, let's chat inside." Hearing this voice, Killian was slightly startled. Maya Hansen also stopped and her expression changed slightly. And Severin, who was standing at the door of the laboratory and facing the laboratory, was so frightened that he turned around quickly. That woman came behind him quietly. And, how could those of his subordinates allow her to walk in on her own? Alice, wearing a black tights, suddenly appeared behind Sever, making him suddenly shocked. Since being injected with extremis, his physical qualities have become extremely powerful. Not only his strength, speed, but even his hearing are much stronger than ordinary people. But, this woman actually appeared at such a close distance behind him before he realized it. No, it wasn't even that I discovered it, it was her words that caught my attention. "If this is an enemy, I'm afraid I don't even know how I died." Severn is a veteran who was trained before being injected with extremis. And now, he is Killian's boss. The psychological quality is pretty good. When he saw Alice, he didn't take it lightly just because she was a woman. As he turned around, his hand had already taken out the pistol from his waist. And, he aimed at the woman in front of him. And Killian's face in the laboratory has become extremely cold. This laboratory has never been seen by any outsider. What is hidden here is the biggest secret in my life. He will never allow anyone to get involved in extremis research. "Who are you?" Killian took 2 steps forward, looked coldly at Alice outside the door, and said. And at the moment, Alice, who was pointed at by Seven with a pistol, did not feel any nervousness or fear at all. She still looked calm. Even, there is a hint of smile. Especially when I saw Maya Hansen behind Killian. Her smile was even more brilliant. The boss's intention is very clear, he wants to bring this woman named Maya Hansen back to be Alexia's assistant. Since he is Alexia's assistant, he is one of his own. Well, at least the future is ours. So, you must leave a good impression on your own. As for the other little ones, it doesn't matter. "Hi, hello, are you Maya Hansen?" Alice tilted her body slightly and said hello to Maya Hansen. She completely ignored Severn, who was pointing a pistol at her, and Killian, who looked evil-faced. Such behavior. Maya Hansen didn't feel much at all. After all, Alice seems to be quite friendly to herself. But Killian and Seven felt a little ugly. This woman is simply looking for death. Let me ask you again, who are you and what is the purpose of coming here? Killian was obviously a little angry, and his voice also rose a bit. And Severin directly pulled the bolt of the pistol. Obviously, they are coming for real. But before Alice could say anything, Severin seemed to suddenly discover something. There was some confusion on his face, and then he suddenly asked, "Where are those people who were looking at you just now?" When he came in to report just now, he asked his younger brothers to look at Alice. But now that this woman is here, where have my Fu Xiaoyang gone? After asking this question, Seven suddenly realized that something was wrong. My younger brothers are all strong men who have been injected with extremists. They are not that easy to deal with. And now, if they don't show up, there's only one reason. This woman has a problem. At the same time, Killian also realized the seriousness of the problem. Under his collar, bursts of red light suddenly appeared. Apparently, he has used the power of Extremis. Extremis, the greatest ability, is that it can bring the whole body into this high temperature state. In this state, Extremis host is virtually immortal. In less important organs such as the heart and brain are destroyed, other injuries will recover instantly. This is the most outrageous thing about Extremis. Killian used the power of Extremis, which also means that he takes this matter very seriously. Although there was only one woman, the silence outside already explained some problems. I have clearly arranged several subordinates outside, but now there is no movement at all. But that's when both Killian and Severin realized something was wrong. Alice suddenly winked, made a face, and said to Severin with a smile, "Their recovery ability is so abnormal, they can regrow their hands after they are cut off, so I cut off their heads." Hearing this, Ji Wen's expression changed. His younger brothers were indeed killed. Severin is about to pull the trigger in his hand. But at the moment, a dark blue light flashed away. Immediately afterwards, a dark green figure slowly stopped next to Severin. He looked like a lizard walking upright, covered with dark green hard scales. The scariest thing is his two claws. Slender, yet sharp. Moreover, there is a dark blue light on the claws, and a faint cold breath emanates from it. Seeing this, Seven was slightly startled. It seemed that the blue light that flashed in front of him just now was the color of the claws in the monster's hand. At this moment, a flash of panic suddenly flashed through Severin's heart. He suddenly felt that the hand he used to pull the trigger had no intuition. Then, Severin saw that the arm slowly slipped from his shoulder. It fell directly to the ground. Seven's heart suddenly trembled. The speed of that monster just now was really too fast. He actually cut off his own arm without even realizing it. But immediately afterwards, Severin discovered something even more terrifying to him. The arm that fell to the ground didn't even have a trace of blood or shit. Moreover, at the location of the fracture, a lot of frost suddenly appeared. Something's wrong. Something is very wrong. After being injected with Extremis, Severin is no longer afraid of losing his arm because he can grow a new one at any time. But now, he doesn't feel the growth of his arms at all. He hurriedly looked at the location where his arm was broken on his shoulder. There was actually some frost there. There was also no blood flowing out. It seemed that it was the frost that blocked the regrowth of his arms. Severin was horrified. He hurriedly took 2 steps back and covered his wound with his other hand. However, when I covered my hand, I suddenly felt a pinprick-like pain. There was actually some frost on those hands. However, Seven, who was slowly retreating, suddenly felt that there seemed to be some movement behind him. He turned around hurriedly and saw another monster, staring at him coldly in the shadows. Its claws exuded the same cold aura as the previous one. There is more than one monster. Seven looked around nervously and saw that the surroundings seemed to be surrounded by those monsters. In the laboratory, Killian witnessed it all. His angry look just now disappeared in an instant. The terrifying monster at the door was still watching me quietly. In the surrounding darkness, pairs of small blue eyes exuded an icy chill. And Killian could clearly see from a distance that the frost on Severn's broken arm was the same as the frost on the monster's claws. In other words, if your arm is cut off by that monster, Extremis will not let it grow back. Those ices apparently blocked the high-temperature power in Extremis. Killian took a few steps back again, and even came to the back of Maya Hansen. "Are you from the Umbrella Company?" Killian asked nervously. He already recognized the appearance of these frost hunters. Although some changes occurred during the battle with New York, the overall appearance is still the same. Although most of his mind was focused on his Extremis, he still knew about such a big event as the Battle of New York. Extremis is really strong. This ability to restore the defective body through high temperatures is somewhat similar to the T-virus. In terms of physical recovery, it is even stronger than the T-virus. But, if Extremis wants to restore the body's severed limbs, it must use terrifying high temperatures to increase the speed of cell division. The ice power of the Frost Hunter comes from the giants of Jotunheim. They are born with the power of frost. They can even fight Asgard with these frost powers. Although they failed, it also showed how powerful the power of frost was. The frost power of these frost hunters comes from Loki, the descendant of Laufey, the leader of the giants of Jotunheim. The frost power in Loki is quite pure. As a result, the frost power of these frost hunters is also quite terrifying. When Extremis faced off against the power of frost, it was clear that the power of frost had the upper hand. They constantly release cold on Severn's wounds, blocking the high temperature of Extremis. In the confrontation between ice and fire, ice has the upper hand. But, the ice power that remains in Seven is like rootless water and will be exhausted sooner or later. And the Extremis in him are almost endless. Therefore, sooner or later he will grow his arms again. It's just that he needs to slowly consume the remaining frost power on his arm. Pity. Severn didn't know this. He thought his arm would never come back. He was disabled before, and he has been laughed at since he came back from the battlefield. Through Extremis, he regained his confidence. But now, I didn't expect that I would become disabled again, and what's more, my most commonly used right hand was lost. At the moment, Seven's face was so gloomy that he could bleed. His heart was completely filled with hatred. But, he was not in a hurry for revenge, but waited quietly. Waiting for an opportunity, a time for the other party to relax their vigilance. He gently moved forward 2 steps. Then, he looked at the frost hunters around him. Those monsters did not make any movement. It seems that he turns a blind eye to his own little actions. A brilliant light flashed in Severn's eyes. He slowly moved forward 2 small steps. And at the moment, after hearing Killian's words, Alice did not deny it. She took 2 steps forward gently and walked directly into the laboratory. After looking around, Alice said slowly, "Since you are all Maya Hansen's friends, I won't kill you yet." Before Alice set off, Lin Yu had no other orders except to bring Maya Hansen back. Therefore, Alice can decide whether Killian and others live or die by herself. But, she has always regarded the Umbrella Company as her home, especially those in the B underground base. And now, if Maya Hansen joins the Umbrella Company's virus laboratory, she will be considered her family in the future. You should never kill your own family members. Are they your friends? Alice came to Maya Hansen and asked softly. Maya Hansen nodded blankly. She is a little confused now. The other person should be the person from the Umbrella Company Killian mentioned. However, I have never interacted with the Umbrella Company. Why do they come to find me? What do you want from me? Maya Hansen asked weakly. While Maya Hansen was talking to Alice, Killian took a few steps back in fright. After learning Alice's identity, he became even more frightened. Not only was he afraid of his own life, but he was also afraid that the Umbrella Company would take away all his research results. Killian still treats a behemoth like the Umbrella Company very cautiously. After all, there are some differences between Umbrella Corporation and Stark Industries. Stark Industries has just released Iron Man recently. Moreover, Tony Stark is just an ordinary person when he doesn't put on that steel battle suit. Even if you put on a steel battle suit, your combat effectiveness is limited. But, Umbrella companies are different. The biochemical technology they master is simply terrifying. Those monsters are extremely powerful in combat, and they always go out in groups. Killian doesn't dare to take the idea of an Umbrella company. He is a smart man. Alice also saw Killian's little move, but she didn't pay attention. This place has been completely surrounded by the frost hunters that he brought. It is impossible for anyone to escape. Simply, Alice pulled up a chair, sat down, and started chatting with Maya Hansen. Maya Hansen, our boss wants to recruit you into the umbrella company to be Dr. Alexia's assistant in our company's virus laboratory. Are you willing? Alice asked directly. She was not willing to lie to the people who were about to become her family. But Maya Hansen, however, looked at the research materials around her and her own research results of more than 10 years, and slowly shook her head. There are some differences between her and Killian. She is more obsessed with research, and Killian has been deliberately keeping her less exposed to social news, so he only has a rough idea of the umbrella company. I just know that the umbrella company is very big, a huge global pharmaceutical monopoly. However, I don't know about the recent big moves of the umbrella company. I'm afraid not, my current research has just reached the most critical moment. Maya Hansen said weakly. She thought this was just a job fair. And, indeed, she did not want to give up her research results. At this time, after hearing Maya Hansen's words, Alice was not angry at all. She just frowned slightly, and then said, "If you don't want to, I can only take you back." Upon hearing this, Maya Hansen was also slightly startled. From Alice to hear, she has always had a good attitude towards herself. Maya Hansen felt no animosity at all. But she didn't expect that the woman in front of her would actually say that she would take her back by force. Maya Hansen subconsciously felt that this was ridiculous. How can anyone recruit employees with such strength? But before Maya Hansen could say anything else, Seven, who had secretly moved to the entrance of the laboratory at some point, suddenly burst out. He had a very cruel temperament in the army. Get money. It wasn't until he retired from the army that he was ridiculed because of his disability, which made his character even more distorted. And now, looking at his broken arm that could not grow back, he seemed to recall the days when he was laughed at. He decided to take revenge on himself. And Alice has become his target. After all, those monsters chopped off their arms after receiving that woman's order. Seven exerted force on his feet, and his body instantly rose into the air. And his left fist has turned into the color of magma. Because just now his hand just touched the frost lightly, and it did not affect the performance of extremis in his body. A ray of red light instantly fell on Alice's back. And at the moment, Maya Hansen wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Killian's face instantly became extremely ugly. If the woman from the umbrella company died in his laboratory, then he would have completely offended that terrifying behemoth. Neither Maya Hansen nor Killian thought that Xiangwen would sneak attack on this woman from the umbrella company. Both of them had a hint of panic in their eyes. Maya Hansen is simply worried, while Killian is afraid of the umbrella company's retaliation. But the two of them wanted to stop Severn, but it was already too late. Seven's body has risen into the air. Extremis gave him strength several times stronger than ordinary people. With one jump, he directly crossed a distance of 7 or 8 meters and punched Alice in the back. Moreover, his fist has also turned into a high-temperature form. If Alice was hit, a big hole would be burned in her back instantly. Certain death. But that's when the corners of Alice's mouth turned up slightly. With the super perception power given to her by the T-virus, she has long known the little moves of the guy behind her. At this time, Alice's body suddenly shook slightly. It seemed that the whole air trembled. A strange ripple started from Alice as the center and quickly spread to all directions. And at the moment, Severn, who was already flying into the air, seemed to suddenly hit a wall. Then, he spit out a mouthful of blood in midair. The body suddenly paused, and then flew out in the opposite direction. Boom! Severn's body hit the wall of the laboratory. This was so powerful that he couldn't get up for a while. Alice's powerful psychokinesis was finally revealed to outsiders for the first time. And this time, Alice's face gradually became colder. Maya Hansen, this guy doesn't look like your friend. Alice sighed casually. Then, he made a gentle gesture to a frost hunter behind him. Suddenly, the dark green figure disappeared instantly, a blue light flashed, and Severn's head slowly slid down from his neck. A patch of frost quickly appeared on the wound on his neck. No blood was shed at all. All this happened in just a few seconds. From Maya Hansen rejecting Alice's invitation, to Severn suddenly getting angry, to the separation of Severn's head and body, this process never takes more than 10 seconds. These 10 seconds also completely subverted Maya Hansen and Killian's views on Alice. They thought Alice was just an ordinary umbrella company employee. She dared to come here because of the monsters following her. Did not expect. She herself was originally a monster. Moreover, it is also a powerful monster that is beyond comprehension. Even Maya Hansen and Killian could see the ripples in the air just now quite clearly. Obviously, it is a power that they cannot understand. And this kind of power can actually allow Alice to knock Severn away without touching his body at all. Simply terrifying. At this moment, Alice seemed to have done a trivial thing and slowly turned her head. Her eyes also shifted from Severn's headless body to Maya Hansen again. How about it? Do you want to come back with me voluntarily, or do you want me to use force? Alice's originally cold face melted like ice and snow again, revealing a smile. However, this smile made Maya Hansen's heart tremble. This woman, she got it completely wrong. She is not as friendly as she appears. In other words, if I agree to go back with her, her attitude will be very friendly. Thinking of this, Maya Hansen finally understood that what the woman in front of her said was not lying to her. If she doesn't agree, she will really use force. How about I go back with you and take a look first? Maya Hansen said tentatively. Upon hearing these words, the smile on Alice's face instantly bloomed. Okay, let's leave now. Alice hurriedly grabbed Maya Hansen's hand and walked out. And at the moment, Killian was still in the corner of the laboratory, deliberately not looking at the two of them. It seems that he wants to reduce his sense of existence. But Alice suddenly asked the somewhat confused Maya Hansen, is this person your friend? Do you need me to help you kill him? As soon as these words came out of his mouth, Killian's heart suddenly trembled. He had no doubt about Alice's words. If Maya Hansen says that she is not his friend at this time, then her life may not be guaranteed. But, fortunately, Maya Hansen is a very soft-hearted woman. Hearing Alice's words, Maya Hansen hurriedly shook her head and explained, No, he is my friend, don't kill him. Maya Hansen was also horrified. Alice kills people without blinking an eye. Although Killian has done a lot of bad things over the years, Maya Hansen is not someone who likes to kill people at every turn. Moreover, Killian and her are indeed friends. After hearing Maya Hansen's words, Alice gently glanced at Killian in the corner. Then, he left the laboratory with Maya Hansen. After Alice left, a dozen frost hunters hidden in the darkness quietly disappeared, as if they had never appeared. At the scene, only Severn's body was left, lying quietly on the floor of the laboratory. When there was completely no sound outside, Killian finally dared to step forward and check on the body of his subordinate Severn. There was also a lot of frost on the neck and arms of the corpse. Still not a drop of blood came out. Immediately afterwards, Killian ran out again and looked at his other men. Really, they were all in the same situation as Severn, their heads were chopped off. In less than 10 minutes, all his men guarding the laboratory were wiped out. And his most important partner in studying extremis, Maya Hansen, was also taken away. Killian felt like crying in his heart. The strength of the biochemical monsters of the Umbrella Company completely shocked Killian again. He felt that he was lucky that he didn't make any small moves and didn't stop the woman from taking Maya Hansen away. Otherwise, he might have ended up like Severn. Killian is very smart. He knows what kind of people he meets and what kind of things he does. In front of the Umbrella Company, he could only choose to endure. But when he encounters those who are not strong enough, he will not tolerate them. Even if you endure it, it is only temporary. For example, Tony Stark, who had a grudge against him, was already ready to take revenge on him. Riding on the Umbrella Company's helicopter, Maya Hansen and Alice quickly arrived at the Umbrella Company headquarters in Raccoon City. Then, under the leadership of Alice, the two went directly to the Honeycomb Underground base through a special passage in the Umbrella Company headquarters building. Maya Hansen was surprised by the size of the Hive's underground base. She had no idea that there were no such huge underground buildings underground in Raccoon City. And this underground building is not only huge, but also has various facilities. It is like an underground city with all the internal organs. Soon, Alice brought Maya Hansen to the door of Lin Yu's office. He knocked lightly and walked in. A bald head appeared in front of Maya Hansen. "Welcome to Umbrella Company, Dr. Maya Hansen." Lin Yu smiled slightly and extended his hand to Maya Hansen. But before Lin Yu and Maya Hansen could chat more, soon, under the leadership of Wesker, Dr. Eric, a doctor of astronomy, also arrived at the Hive underground base. The two talents Lin Yu wanted were all present. Neither of them can be considered as joining the Umbrella Company on their own. But once you enter the Hive, you may have no chance of getting out. And when Maya Hansen saw Alexia's research project, she was immediately shocked. The research on the T-virus seems more profound than her extremis, but the level of perfection is also higher. Soon, she and Alexia got into work mode. Dr. Eric, after seeing the Tesseract, was also ecstatic. The existence of Tesseract seems to have opened the key to a new world for him. And working for Lin Yu is much better than working for Loki. At least the Umbrella Company is from Earth. Even if you come up with something through research, it will benefit the Earth. Soon, Dr. Eric also entered work mode. Under Lin Yu's order, he began research on the portal. And with his previous experience building portals for Loki, his work progressed very quickly. It is estimated that it won't be long before the Umbrella Company will have its own portal. But it is determined. The first thing to bear fruit was not Dr. Eric's portal, but a virus laboratory. After Maya Hansen joined the Umbrella Company virus laboratory, it took less than 10 days to make new progress. Definitely, it's not all Maya Hansen's fault. Previously, after obtaining Chidori's body, Alexia's research was on the verge of a breakthrough. Coupled with the addition of Maya Hansen, many ideas about extremis were also added to it. Virus research has made the latest progress. Soon, Lin Yu took Alice to the virus laboratory in the Hive underground base. At the moment, Alexia and Maya Hansen were already quietly waiting for Lin Yu's arrival. The two seemed to get along very happily. The two of them have similar research fields, so there are many topics to talk about. Easier to talk about than Maya Hansen and Killian. And since Killian was not originally a good person, Maya Hansen had long wanted to leave him. Therefore, after coming to Umbrella Company, she quickly fell in love with the atmosphere here. Just concentrate on your research and don't worry about other things at all. And whatever you want, you get it. The Umbrella Company's support for virus laboratories is simply meticulous. The huge financial resources make their research without any obstacles. It also solidified Maya Hansen's idea of staying here. Immediately afterwards, Alexia reported the latest research results to Lin Yu. "Boss, after we studied Chidori's genes and added some ideas from Maya Hansen, we developed a new type of virus based on the T-virus. Although it comes from the T-virus, it is very different from the T-virus. Quote, the integration success rate has increased to about 90%, and the basic ability improvement brought to the host is also stronger than the T-virus. Just after being injected with this virus, you will have more than ordinary abilities. The power of Tongren is about 10 to 15 times more. Quote, however, there is also a disadvantage, that is, its growth and potential are completely incomparable to the T-virus, and its self-evolution ability is limited." Alexia talked a lot and finally finished introducing the characteristics of the new virus. To boil it down, there are only two important points. The first one is that the success probability of integrate has become 90%, which is extremely embarrassing. The second is that it has a high starting point after integration with the host, but the potential is insufficient. In short, the advantages and disadvantages are obvious. But the advantages definitely outweigh the disadvantages. At least the problem of integrate success rate has been solved. A 90% chance of success is already considered very high. "Boss, we haven't given this virus a name yet, so come and name it," Alexia said. Lin Yu thought for a moment and then said, "Then let's call him the G-virus." The G-virus is also a virus in the Resident Evil movie that Lin Yu watched in his previous life, and it is somewhat similar to what Alexia described. In this case, Lin Yu will save trouble. Just name it the G-virus. At this time, Lin Yu had just confirmed the name of the G virus, and there was a burst of noise outside the virus laboratory. This voice is familiar to everyone. It's Wesker. This guy didn't know where he got the news, so he ran over directly. Although Wesker is also a core member, the access control of the virus laboratory is much stricter than other places, so he cannot enter. I can only stay outside and keep shouting. Seeing Wesker's anxious look, Lin Yu smiled bitterly and said to Alice, "Go open the door for him." Lin Yu regretted it a little. After all, Wesker's excitement was all because he told him about the T-virus and Alice's strength. This led to Wesker anxiously waiting for the success of the research on the new virus every day. However, Lin Yu was not disgusted with Wesker's approach. This guy has no other hobbies besides improving his strength, and he is absolutely loyal to himself. Soon, Wesker hurried in. But, when he saw Lin Yu's face, his expression suddenly dimmed again. The boss was angry, but he was still scared. But, Lin Yu's next words instantly made him excited again. "Alexia, hurry up and inject this guy with the G virus first, or you'll die," Lin Yu said to Alexia. The three women in the virus laboratory laughed at the same time. Wesker, on the other hand, directly rolled up his sleeves and handed his arm to Alexia. Lin Yu was speechless for a moment. This guy is indeed a martial arts idiot and doesn't understand anything. Look at him, it's like he's been vaccinated. Is it such a simple thing to inject the virus? Lin Yu kicked Wesker on the butt and kicked him directly into the sealed room where Alice had injected the T-virus. After being kicked, Wesker seemed to realize something when he stood up and saw the metal bed for injection in front of him. He scratched his head in embarrassment, and then silently climbed onto the metal bed. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.